meeting will come to order. We're a couple minutes late because of Bob Solari. So. I'd like to welcome everybody to the budget workshop for Tuesday, July 15th at 9:02 a.m. At this time, I'd like to call on the Clerk of the Circuit Court, Mr. Jeffrey R. Smith, and our Comptroller to give the invocation, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, of which Commissioner Wesley Davis has been practicing since kindergarten.
Oh boy, it's going to be one of those days.
Good morning, gentlemen. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you are good, and thank you for what you do for us every day and for protection and for personally watching over me as in my incident. Lord, we just ask for those people that are around the world serving our country that you protect them and guide them and give them the hedge of protection. And for first responders everywhere, Lord, just thank you for what they do for us every day. Lord, give these men here wisdom to go through this budget and to do the necessary things to make sure that we operate with your good graces and with good stewardship of your finances. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jeff. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh man, it's going to be a long day.
You know, practice shows. All right. At this time, we will go into the general overview of the session, and I'll turn this over to our County Administrator, Mr. Joseph A. Laird. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. In front of you today is the 2015-16 budget. The County Administrator is proposing a budget of $279,943,033. That is up 7.5% from where we started last year, where our budget was $260 million. However, I will say it is down 40% from the all-time high when it was $472 million right before the recession. We also, in this budget, let me go over the major things. First of all, we've got good news for a change. After the recession, our tax roll is up 7%. That's the highest it's been in 3 years. Last year it was 4.5%. And the prior year it was 1.5%. That's after a 30% reduction in the tax roll during the recession. So we've still got a long ways to go to get back to our values that we had. We were taxing about $100 million right before the recession. We're up to $87 million. So the public is we have reduced our reliance on ad valorem taxes substantially. The current year, the reason for the increase is one is the salary increases. That's going to be $1.8 million. Also, we've got 30 new positions in here, 31 new positions. 20 of those are in Emergency Services District. 17 of those in the Emergency Service District are to open a new station on 4th Street and 43rd, and that amounts to $1.8 million for those. The health insurance increase is about $459,000. We've got $450,000 for the Gifford Neighborhood Plan. We've got capital. We've put in a lot more capital replacement. During the recession, we pulled all our capital out, so we had to put that back in. We've got $150,000 to start the intergenerational facility. We've got $1.1 million for all aboard Florida legal fight. Also, I'd like to point out in this budget, in the general fund, the county departments are down $397,000. So that's basically.
$390,000 from where?
They're all throughout the departments. $397,000.
No, what benchmark? From last year, from the highest?
From the current year.
Okay. Thank you.
So we've done our part there. And that's a basic overview. If you'd like, we'll go straight into the general fund. And the general fund is located on page 27 of your book. The general fund, we're proposing a slight increase in the general fund millage, about 0.7%. However, that's going to be offset by a decrease in the debt service land acquisition bonds. We refinanced those this year. We got a substantial savings. So overall, it nets out to a slight decrease when you look at countywide. And the general fund is $77,500,000. It's $77,523,210. That's a $1.4 million increase, or 1.9%. Constitutional officers are up 1.9%. Up 1.9 million, sorry. The ad valorem taxes are increased 7.1%. I will like to point out that in the general fund, the county departments only now account for 19% of the general fund. State agencies and constitutionals are now 72%. So our budget has been decreasing substantially throughout the last several years. Our millage rate we're proposing is 3.3602. Of this, we've got salary increases of $299,000, health insurance increases of $258,000. All aboard Florida is $1.1 million. Children's Services, the board decided to match a $200,000 donation from Johns Island, so that's up $228,000 or 36%. And of course, we've got the state mandates, the Department of Juvenile Justice and Medicaid. They're up, that's causing us about together about $145,000 increase. Looking at page 27, I would just take all the county departments at once. The current year, our budget is $15,261,737. We're recommending $14,863,804. That's a $397,933 decrease, or 2.6%. And those are the departments it represents. Does the commission have any questions on any of those departments? Or we might have people in the audience also who are funded out of this that may want to talk.
And thank you, Joe, for bringing that up. I see we do have some people in the audience, and I see the departments they probably have questions about. If there's something, David, you need to say something about this right now?
The Stormwater Conservation District is funded out of the general fund, and our administrative assistant that you folks are kind enough to pay for us came on board too late to get all of the budget items in that were necessary, and we've got our dues for the national and the state association, the employees association dues, and the $175 to the state for the, the EFO or something. Used to be the Economic Opportunities deal. EEOC. But it wasn't. It was an oversight and didn't get into the budget, and we found out it was too late to put it in the Unix system, so we're requesting the $1,310 additional to the budget to cover those dues and items that we have to pay.
Okay. Any issues with that, Commissioners?
I'm okay with it, Mr. Chairman.
You need a motion? We're not waiting, just consensus.
It's an oversight. We don't have a problem adding that back in. We'll put it a tally at the end, and we can all look at it. All right. But we have no problem with pay. We've always paid the dues for soil conservation. We didn't notice it was not included this year. All right.
And Joe, let me know, talking about adding that extra position in the extension that I talked to you about.
Yes, the extra position in the ag extension, which they had requested, and we matched 40% of that request. Right. Our portion would be $21,137. I did not include it in this. It's up to the board if they wish to do so.
Where would that be appropriate to talk
about? You can talk about it right now.
Right now? I'd like to see that. I don't know whether I'm in a minority on that or not, but I'd like to see that position added with especially in light of some of the environmental things that we're coming down with the burden as far as the pesticide, the fertilizer, the training, and everything.
Yeah, it's an environmental horticultural agent, and we don't have a problem. That's the board's decision.
Mr. Chairman, I have a problem with it. I mean, this is something that just came in the last moment, that I always have some reluctance to approve things that just come in the last moment and try to forego the budget process. From the backup material you got, it seems apparent that most of the activities that would be covered by this are already covered by the recent fertilizer ordinance person that we hired at a significant expense. And if this board felt it was okay to give other municipalities almost a day's work for that fertilizer ordinance person, then clearly there was some free time. So I think, and from the rest of the stuff I saw, most of the information that any homeowner would want, they can get over the internet, if not through the help of our fertilizer person. So I think that we're basically duplicating services, and don't believe that the economy has recovered that strongly that we can start moving from needs to wants.
Two things on that. Joe, first of all, was it requested?
It was requested in the budget, and I did not recommend it. You know, we had probably about 45 positions requested. I only recommended funding 31.
And I guess really just I want to find out that, you know, what somebody's version of last minute is, and say if this is not the proper time for this, then I would certainly, you know, not want to do anything last minute. If there's something that somebody didn't know about, or, you know, that kind of thing, that would, God forbid.
We're used to the commission doing things last minute, so we don't
So
have
this
a
is
problem.
really ahead of things. Is it what I'm? Give me just a minute. I'll let you come back to it. So if this
We're
isn't,
okay, whatever the commission would
sure,
like to do.
sure. I just don't want to be accused of last minute doing things that aren't proper in a budget workshop that doesn't go into effect until the next 60 days. And so I just wanted to see if that was that I was thinking wrong.
Mr. Chair, I'll withdraw the last minute. I didn't realize that somebody had already tried it. I just got notified of it a couple of days back.
Okay. And now I do respect your opinion on not being in favor of the position. I have no problem with
But I
that.
mean, the rest of it about it being somewhat redundant, I stand by.
Okay.
And the fact that we have hired somebody recently for a good portion of what this job would cover, I think is pretty apparent.
Okay.
And I just believe that the economy hasn't fully recovered, and I think we need to be extremely careful in adding any additional positions.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm going to take a little bit different approach than Commissioner Solari, although I respect his opinion. I don't think we can have enough educational folks out there working. I think we've all said this before, that the least expensive pound of fertilizer or nutrients we get out of the lagoon is the ones that don't go in there in the first place. And given the fact that we're only picking up 40% of the cost for this, but get 100% of the effort, I think is a worthwhile endeavor to go through. And again, I think just more education, the more people out there. Not that Alexis is not doing a great job. I think she is, but it's a big county. There's a lot of areas to cover, and certainly I think adding another position here for $21,000 to help educate the public on things like the lagoon and other environmental issues is entirely appropriate.
We can count to two.
I have to agree with Commissioner Solari as far as the timing, but then I had to outweigh it with the benefit. I think Alexis is doing a fine job. I think this year we're looking at the municipalities that have requested the assistance and direction of her efforts. I think that she's making tremendous impact, and for the amount of funding that they're looking at, we will have an additional person for education that's working with some of the local labs. And again, the extension has been a great partner with us, and it's been more difficult to be able to contact them because the administrators are actually the frontline enforcers. And after speaking with them, I believe that the benefit that we would have to receive from having that additional position would probably lie in and about $25,000 to $30,000 without benefits. And I think it's a reasonable cost for what we can get.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Where would this particular person work out of?
They would work out of right across from City Hall, where our ag extension is.
Okay.
At the old library, as we refer to it.
Right.
That's where they'd be located.
And the position we had back when,
Right.
and just for the benefit of the public, it's called extension because literally it is an extension of the university system. And what it does is it puts local expertise in here as a resource from everything from the master gardeners, for those in the agricultural industry, for conservation, just like in Commissioner O'Brien's push for this is from the environmental side, And what they're doing right now is with the law changes and with the BMPs and everything associated with anybody putting out fertilizer, they have to go in there and they all have to be trained. Their employees have to be trained, and Extension has picked that up. And so this is so much so we actually are fortunate enough to have a 4-H director in there, or Extension director in there that's bilingual, and can, you know, they're busy. They really are busy, and so this is just one of those positions. And the 40%, it's all taxpayer dollars, so nobody's acting like it's not. But what happens in this instance is 60% of the salary and benefits are covered by the University of Florida, and then 40% is picked up locally. And they would, of course, be 100% here locally through the Extension system.
I also like to agree with Commissioner O'Brien that the most savings, every pound you don't put into the lagoon, excuse me, is money well spent if you equated going through an analysis of the cost per pound of phosphorus and nitrogen using our current facilities we have, O&M, capital. You know, you're in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars per pound. So if you're looking at our share 21,000, if you keep just 40 pounds out, you're even. Yep. So I'm in.
You keep thinking like that, Commissioner Zork, we'll get going here.
I'll tell you what.
And the position is dedicated to Indian River County?
Yes.
100%.
Yep. We need a motion on that, or can we count to 4 to 1 fast enough?
Well, we're fine.
Okay.
More wishes, we'll add it to the sheet for at the end of the meeting.
All right.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to touch base on the libraries.
The libraries?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe, we had a serious economic downturn, and there's been a lot of attrition. I want to look at the staffing of the main library. Where do we stand now as opposed to 2008 when we're comparing what we had with the Extension member?
Well, let me say something about the libraries, and I'm going to be real honest. We have more employees.
I wouldn't expect you to be anything but honest.
We cut 262 positions during the recession, 27% of our workforce. We're now down to 211 positions after we were adding back with the recession coming back that we've cut. We have more employees per capita in our library than just about anyone in the state, so I don't think we're under by any means. And if we want to look, maybe we should. There's a company that privatizes libraries, and I think we should look at that. We looked everywhere else. We looked at privatizing everything else. It's a company that all across the state privatizes libraries, and they run them for you. And I think we should look at that. That's my opinion.
Well, maybe that's a discussion for the future, but as far as the present time, we've gone through some tremendous technology changes, and there's a different order. I don't think we're still going to the card catalog file, and there's a lot of diversity in the main library, and there's a lot of functions, as we saw yesterday during the presentation of the 1715 fleet, that we're relying more and more upon volunteerism at the libraries. And that's all good and fine. We have a tremendous amount of dedicated volunteers, but they need direction, and we need to maintain staffing levels to ensure that we have the right direction and service for the public. This commission, as we go out and speak in many areas, we are proud that we have not closed our libraries. We're proud that we have not closed our parks, as many jurisdictions have. But I think it is at a dangerous level at this time.
They didn't request any new positions, so I'm a little, they didn't request any new positions when they presented their budget. But I think, it's good. We will look at that. And I think at the same time we're looking at we should put it out to bid to privatize it. I think that we should do the same. We've done it everywhere else, and I don't think.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm not supporting that right
just yet. I agree with Mr. Baird that I think we're adequately staffed, but I think the presentation we saw yesterday from Pam Cooper just shows the spirit of our employees working for the county. And Joe, I understand that there may be a cost saving, but we have so many people that come here to the county and stay overnight to use the library and the genealogy section, and I think that's all due to the spirit of the workers we have there. And I don't think we would get that kind of spirit from privatization. So I understand it's a cost saving, Joe. I recognize that, but I don't think I would. I don't. Well, maybe, but I don't think I'd support going that way. I like the library, the staff we have, and the effort they put forward. I think is worth more than saving a few dollars.
Joe, really, what dollar amount would it be to look at even a part-time position?
Well, I don't know.
ensure
They didn't
consistency of
request, so
service?
I don't know what kind of position. I didn't get a request for a position. I
That
don't.
doesn't mean they don't want
I
it or
don't know.
need
I
it.
don't know what kind of position. Before I could give it a number, I'd have to know what kind of position. I've got to be careful. I get my share of complaints on all my departments, so I've got to be careful what I say here.
Well, I'm with Commissioner O'Brien on this one. I'm happy to have the county staff continue to staff the library, but at this time, again, I don't believe we're fully out of the economic recession. I believe we need to be extremely careful going forward, and I don't think it's appropriate at this time to be adding any absolutely necessary employees to the county.
Yeah, I would have to know what position they wanted. I don't know what kind of position, since I didn't get a request, they want to add. So I don't know how to put a price on it.
Yes, I have a procedural question as we're going through this preliminary overview. Obviously, I have a lot of carryover questions and things I'd like to continue on from yesterday. Is procedurally, because we're going into the library, kind of bounced around a little bit, asking some overview questions. We will then be going through each district fund by type, or we're going to be doing any grouping like Commissioner
I think
Brandon
when we get to the emergency services district was the issue you brought up yesterday.
Okay.
That would be the time.
Okay.
Right after you read all the street light ordinances. Yeah.
We'll give you a little reminder.
I was practicing last night. Just
Also, up at 2 a.m.
Whenever we break for lunch, we'll let you have
Also,
your time.
when you look at libraries, the whole library is changing. They're going to smaller. You don't have big libraries anymore nationally because of automation. They call them, like, they have little libraries, and you have e-books, and you have all those other things now. So your staffing in libraries is reducing, and automation is increasing, obviously. And that's a national trend. I reduced less positions in my library. If you look across the state, they close libraries, they reduce positions, and we have one of the highest per capita of employees in library. And I think we need to work on a volunteer program to be more successful, like most libraries have.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioners, work on the numbers? Okay. All right. I can't count to 3 on that one, Commissioner. Okay. Next.
Next week, on our agenda is MSTU, which is the taxing district for the unincorporated area. And the proposed budget we have there is $26,624,870. That is an increase of $632,525, or 2.4%. We are keeping the millage the same here at 1.0733. A few highlights here. Our ad valorem tax roll here also went up 7.1%. The majority of the MSTU is transfers out, so that was an increase of $266,977. We have a decrease in our franchise fees of $165,000, and that's because we were a little more aggressive this year on our estimate, and we're having to back off of that. The intergenerational facility startup operating costs are $150,000. We have one position we're recommending in this budget, and it's a senior planner. And that's basically the highlights of this budget.
When you say senior planner, I'm assuming that's in the planning department, or is that?
Yeah, it's in the
okay.
planning department.
I just didn't make sure. I want to make sure we weren't putting somebody in the intergenerational facility for senior planning. Okay.
No.
All right.
Actually, what we'll probably come back mid-year when we've looked at the intergenerational facility or programming for the following year. We'll be coming back because there's going to be a lot of programming out of that facility, and we'll have a lot of discussion mid-year.
Mr. Chairman, one question on intergenerational facility operating costs. Have we projected or even thought of the concept of what kind of revenue might come in for special events, rental fees? I know I, a while back, was contacted by a traveling statewide basketball league that a number of the team members and coaches are from here, but they've never had the opportunity to rent a place to play here in their tournament play. They travel around the state with that and bring in teams from other areas. So we obviously will have a rental opportunity income and come up with it like we do for the fairgrounds. We have a fee structure for types of groups and rentals, but
we're going to come back with a total fee structure. We're also going to increase. We've had what we've had a problem with is we haven't had a facility to have basketball and volleyball recreation both for adults and for children. And so we will have a rental fee. It'll be very similar to all of our other programs, and there'll be registration. We're working through all that. We'll also rent the facility out to other organizations because it's intergenerational. It's not just recreation. It's other things. So and we're also looking for partners in it. We've been approached for a couple of nonprofits have approached us for partners, and also senior resources for programs. Mm-hmm. But we're going to come back with a programming plan mid-year with fees for the commission to approve. It would be hard to do that all at this budget, so we're going to do it mid-year when we get closer.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I recently had a communication from a constituent. She was a rather attractive, blonde, female constituent, goes by the name Susan. And she recently, this week, visited the North County Aquatic Center with 4 young boys in tow. And first of all, they had a fantastic experience there, swimming in the pool, jumping off the high dive, playing in the splash pool. Staff was great. They just had a great time all around. But she commented, we've put some shading up over some of the bleachers areas, and she had mentioned what a big asset that was, that shade, particularly during a 92-degree day in the summer here, and what a benefit that was and how it made the visit more attractive. But we're lacking other areas for shading, and I've talked to staff, and staff estimates for about $25,000 we could put up about 4 more sections of shade over the open decking patio area there that would really enhance the county facility there, would provide some shade protection for everyone. And so, Joe, would there be either in cash forward or sales tax or something we could find some one-time capital?
We could fund that out of optional sales tax. We could do that in the current year, or we could take it out of our reserves for the 2015-16 year. It is a complaint we do receive a lot, is that there's not enough shade at the North County pool. And so it's up to the Board of County Commissioners what they'd like to do on that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the board if they would support using that as a one-time capital expense to improve the North County facility.
You'll do that out of this year's budget, or you want to do that?
I'll leave that to Joe. Where do you think?
Well, I think we could do it out of this year's. We'll bring a budget amendment in August and do it out of this current year, not next year's. Because we are getting a lot of complaints about that right now. Yeah. The summer's out, the children are out there, and there's not enough shade.
Yeah. I'd like to recommend to the board that we take it out of this year's optional sales tax as a one-time capital improvement to the facility.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, also into that same discussion, do agree that's a great improvement up there. Also last night at Hobart Park, you had about, 120 kids playing ball, plus parents and grandparents. And the clamoring for a sliver of shade from a light pole because there's no cover on any of the areas up there. If when you're looking and you happen to find some other revenue stream grant opportunities or something that can go for that, there's probably some other areas that could really benefit from that shade program.
Yeah, the shade's very, we don't have any shade, I don't think, in any of our recreational baseball fields, or do we have it in our lacrosse fields or soccer fields, so it's pretty...
I think some of you get, like at South County Park, there's just a lot of trees left, so you get a lot of natural, and then Hobart just doesn't have that. The North County Park area where they play ball, there's some natural trees that were left there, so we're getting some of it for free just from how we managed the site when we built it.
So is that something, I dare ask the question, is it conducive to plant some trees for some shade?
Well, that might be a good long-term partnership with one of the ag groups or 4-H clubs or somebody that's in that. But in talking with some of the rec staff that are up there last night, even maybe looking at scheduling change because it's so hot for the kids to, well, probably more the parents and grandparents are complaining because the kids have the dugout.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. All right.
Well, they'll bring it back on the 18th, and we'll vote then. Hopefully,
Sounds good.
the commission will support that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
While we're speaking about shade, the pavilion that was paid for by the health department at the Gifford Park had a shade on it, and it was a rather complex material, and I believe it cost about $5,000, and it was destroyed in the hurricanes.
Oh, really?
And the pavilion basically has a skeleton structure that covers it. It's the workout station, and the metal is powder coated very nicely, but it does not afford any shade or comfort to those that are using the facility. If you go there in the morning, you'll see how many people are actually working out at this station. And they're working out at 5 and 6 in the morning because once the sun hits, they can't work out on it. It's a little obstacle challenge course. Yeah. I think it's what they call it, stage 2. And there is a lot of activity, but it gets very hot, and there is no shade or comfort area anywhere near that area. As a matter of fact, we had 2 trees, but one recently has fallen with time.
Where I am with you on that one is...
We could bring back, we'll look at the shade on that. I did get a complaint on that just recently, and we're looking into it, and we'll probably include that in August budget amendment to look at that. And it was like a tarp type.
Yes.
We'll look at that, and we'll bring that back also, and I think it needs to be replaced.
So, and especially, kind of like Commissioner Solari said, I know that we're not quite there as far as the recovery, but that's that's hurricane damage that should. I would have supported deferred maintenance back then, but now.
Yeah.
It fell through the cracks. It was the pavilion was, I think, paid for by the health department and placed there, and I know Dave Fleetwood has done an awesome job in trying to repair, but he said it was finally just not reparable.
Yeah, it just got recently brought to my attention. I was not aware of it.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Thank you.
I'm happy to support both Commissioner O'Brien's and Commissioner Fletcher's on this one, because, again, as you pointed out, this is more a one-time capital expense rather than a ongoing operational expense.
Right.
And it's basically doing the proper type of maintenance and development for
the facilities.
The huge facilities, which I think is one of our county's greatest assets.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Next move. Joe?
Yes. Next, we have the Transportation Fund. The Transportation Fund, we are recommending a budget of $14,310,369. It does not have any ad valorem. It's funded from the MSTU and the general fund. It has a decrease of $468,300. In this budget, we have 3 new positions: one in Road and Bridge for maintenance of the right-of-ways and medians. We have one in traffic engineering, and we have one in stormwater. And we think these positions are really needed. I will point out that at one time we had over 100 positions in the 80s in Road and Bridge. We're down to 77.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the population's double. So that's an area, I mean, I wish we could do the same with libraries. And
I wish you could, too.
Not helpful.
I just don't understand why we don't go out and see what he.
No.
And the replacement cost is $400. I'm sorry, that's $268,000 for new positions. Capital replacement is at $492,000. We really deferred our equipment during the recession, and we're just having to catch up, just like everything else.
Yeah, sure. On the Transportation Fund, I know that I had been, Commissioners, I'm hoping that y'all have been CC'd on this, some correspondence back and forth with Indian River Shores on North Winter Beach Road. And
That would be in our resurfacing.
okay, all right.
We've looked at that road, we've rated that road, and also that road has
It's got some drainage issues, as I
drainage
understand.
issues, but those drainage issues weren't done by us, so I don't, and we've looked at it, we rated it, we have a lot more roads that are in worse condition that need to be done before we do that one. And I think we got to be careful, because that's why we have a way to rate roads and when they have to be done.
And Mr. Chairman, on that one, I went down with Chris Moore to take a look at that.
Right.
And I think that Chris Moore is right. I mean, we do have a grading system. That road is in decent shape, and I don't see how we can start jumping
It is in
roads
decent
above staff's recommendations based on their professional
And
opinion.
forgive me for not, I thought it was more of the drainage issue than the actual road issue.
But again, researching that, unless Chris is wrong, the drainage issues are a result of the way the developers put their entranceways and the drainage for their private facility, not anything that
It's a
the
private
county
problem
did
created.
Okay.
with their road. If it were a county problem with their road, or if that was my understanding based on talking to staff, I'd be fully supportive of that.
Okay.
And I went down there actually thinking I was going to try to push something faster than when it was, than what I understood staff wanted to do. But after walking it with Chris and getting a better understanding of it, I just felt that it was the type of thing that, even though, you know, it's an area warm and dear to my heart, it would be inappropriate to try to push that off especially some of the, District 1 and 2 roads that are in more need of it.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. What else?
That's it. Emergency Services District.
Okay.
If you're all done with transportation, we go to the Emergency Services District.
I don't know, Joe, I tell you what, I see some people I see Godfrey Gibson, and he's either going to talk about the Gifford Pool or Gifford Dock, one of the two, I'm sure. But I want to give everybody, I don't want to go over this and everybody not know. I see, obviously the sheriff probably doesn't want to speak right now, but I just
Do
want
you
to
want
make
to do the non-departmental, which is the general fund?
What I want to do is I want to make sure that everybody that's here knows exactly where we are and what we're talking about and how it relates back to what their interest may be.
I think we've got a lot of non-departmental or outside agencies here.
Okay.
So why don't we take those before we take the Emergency Services District? We'll probably spend a lot of time on it.
Okay.
And, and the non-departmental are on page, the agency, state agencies, they're on page 27, and they're listed here, and also the nonprofits that you fund. So if they want an opportunity to speak, in front of you is our recommendations.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to just sort of read them slowly down, and if anybody hits one that they want to speak on. come
On the
on
state
up.
agencies, we start with New Horizons.
New
John?
Horizons, we're recommending $281,541. That's $2,787, or 1% above last year's. State Health Department, we're recommending.
My suggestion actually was if anybody wants to speak on it when it's
Oh,
mentioned,
okay.
to come on up.
John, you want to say anything?
So that if, for instance, Mr. Romano wanted to say something about
Yeah.
New Horizons, he'd get up.
Right.
Good morning. For the record, John Romano. I'm the CEO of New Horizons. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm just wanting to thank you or thank Joe for putting in a 1% increase. Joe, not to correct you, but it's $2,700, not $3,700.
I'm sorry.
Just for the record. Just for the record.
All right.
And I just basically wanted to thank you for your commitment and loyalty to mental health services over the years. I really don't have much else to say. You'll get my year-end fiscal report. As a matter of fact, it's going out today, which tells you the number of units that we provided for the fiscal year. I send that out to you guys quarterly. And it usually, well, not usually, it increases every year in terms of the number of people we serve and in terms of the dollar value amount as well. So just want to thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
John, I just wanted to say that you represent probably one of the most transparent and accountable state agencies that we deal with. I just want to say that your regular reports are well appreciated, and I think that's why you have the understanding you have because you consistently ensure that we know what you're doing with your dollars.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Handler? Thank you, John.
It's easy to answer the taxpayer. Thank you.
Next one's Health Department, Joe. Welcome, Cheryl, Miranda.
Hi, I'm Miranda Hawker. I'm the administrator for the Health Department. I did want to, as John had said as well, thank you for your collaboration over the last year. One of the things we're most excited about moving forward immediately is the work that's being done at MLK Park. Hearing the conversation about the shade this morning, that is something we've put as a priority for the playground equipment that we're putting in as a result of the Sapphire Award we were given. There's lots of, if you haven't been out to the work in MLK Park, there are a significant number of trees that have been left there. So there is some natural shade there, but it's really the result of a tremendous collaboration between the county and the health department and several different community organizations. So we really are looking forward to the next year, and thank you for your support.
Okay. Thank you, Miranda.
And Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, last year we had approved some funding for the health department for an environmental health position, and because of the state budget and our budget not meshing, there's a little bit of a shortage that Jason, I talked to him this morning, they're going to bring a budget amendment back on the 18th to fill that gap. Okay. So we'll make sure that the health department is whole. So
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Next one, then we have the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I know.
It shows 0.
And the Department of Juvenile Justice. Anyone?
The bad guys aren't showing up.
I know it. Medicaid. Joe, go ahead and start going through these. Obviously, I'm trying to think of it until I see somebody there. Medicaid.
The next one's the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. It's $60,611. That's $2,448 more than last year, or 4.2%. Department of Juvenile Justice, $405,589. That is up $82,494, or 26.5%. That's a state mandate.
So let's repeat that, Joe. How much control do we have over that line item?
We don't have any control over that, or Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council.
In fact, there was a legal ruling that they were overcharging us and the other counties for that, and we were looking for a legislative fix for that this year, and it didn't happen. So.
See, yeah, the state they said that they had to repay the counties, but they say they can't afford to appropriate the money.
So I'll go back to what Jason said.
I guess they're above the law.
Basically, the Department of Juvenile Justice is ignoring the legal ruling.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons why I love unaccountable bureaucracy so much.
The Medicaid is $1,016,073. That's up $63,280. That's 6.6%. That's another state mandate. Environmental Control Board, $7,033, the same as this year. Circuit Court expenses, $389,109. It's up $24,241, which is 6.6%. Guardian ad litem is $91,962, up $4,574, or 5.2%. The Victim Assistance Program is $66,823. It's no increase over last year. State Attorney, $181,407. That's up $14,392, or 8.6%. Public Defender, $85,973. That's down $3,168, or 3.6%. Medical Examiner, it is $324,199. That's up $25,536, or 8.6%. Total state.
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask, on the medical examiner's fee, is that the fee included for when they pick up, store, and perform the autopsy portions, And do we know how many?
There's an interlocal agreement, and this is an estimate based on the number of bodies that they handle.
Okay.
So, and that's our portion of it. Okay. Now, there was a state, they were trying to eliminate the state fee for funeral homes. I think there was a 50, but that didn't get eliminated. The state legislatures was going to eliminate that fee.
That's when
it was
they
proposed
do
by
the
two state legislators that had funeral homes, and they were going to eliminate the fee. So, but that didn't pass.
And that fee offsets our costs. So the medical examiner says I need X dollars to run my agency, and then I collect Y for in those fees, and they deduct that from us. So it's a savings to us.
Yeah, and that's an estimate. We have a tri-county agreement. Most of these are most of these agencies that are tri-county, like state attorney, public defender. We're in that district and the court system. Now the court system just for our portion of the court system.
All right.
We are worried about technology money. We're running out of technology money in our court. It comes out of fees, but there's not enough fees getting collected for technology, so that may end up on the back of the general fund because the state law says if there's not enough in fees, it comes out of the local government's general fund.
And we have sufficient funds this year that won't need to happen, but we're looking at a shortfall next year for using up any money that we have in the bank. That's one of those things where the state was required for a constitutional amendment, I think back in 2004, to fund the state court systems, and they said, well, there are certain responsibilities the county still has, that the counties still have, and that's court technology. And they gave us a revenue stream. However, the revenue stream is increasingly inadequate. So the state courts, the circuit court, the state attorney, the public defender, and guardian ad litem all need to eat out of that same pie. The money that's coming in now isn't even enough to fund the court administration portion of that. And then we have state attorney, public defender, and guardian ad litem as well. That, in my mind, that should be something that we should consider as far as our legislative priorities for next year, that fee is becoming inadequate, and I think it's something that's happening all over the state as well.
Also, the law that requires us to increase funding for courts every year. I mean, in a recession, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, that I agree with that. I don't know how much success we're going to have, but I agree with you. Next.
Economic Development Division, we're recommending $163,445. That's an increase of $19,247, or 13.3%.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, on those, that would be exclusive of any of the additional commitment fees we are spending on the positioning initiatives and sharing agreements with the chamber on. Okay.
Anything, Helene, you need to add anything to that? Okay. Thanks.
This is just a list of the Children's Services grants. You gave the Children's Services Grant Committee direction on the maximum amount, and these are who they funded based on your direction. They go through an extensive process and review. So that's they're recommending. You had recommended an amount of $851,965.
Okay. Does anybody go back to that just real quick? Anybody want to speak on any of those, on the Children's Services grants? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Good morning. Jackie Jackson, CEO of the Early Learning Coalition. I just wanted to remind the commissioners that we do have some funding. I know I've brought this to you over the years. We do have additional funding that we can leverage at the state level. It's through the Child Care Executive Partnership Program. And the way that it works, for any local dollars that we receive, we can match dollar for dollar to serve children in Indian River County. And I know that at this time that we have not been put in the budget, but anytime during the year, if you do have extra funding and you would like to serve children, I just wanted to remind you of that opportunity. And I do have a letter that I can leave with Jason just to explain it a little bit. But I always thank you for allowing me to come before you all and update you on information and just help the children of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question, Jackie. Is that a one-for-one grant, I was thinking when I met with you last time, it's a little better than 1-for-1, or is it 1-for-1?
It's 1-for-1. It's $1 for $1. So, for instance, if we were to get $10,000, then the state would match it $10,000, and those dollars go directly to serve the children. So it's direct services, no administration costs, goes directly to serve children. And in the past, we have had to give a letter of intent by May 15th, and I know that that doesn't really fall in line with the way that you all do your budget. The Child Care Executive Partnership is a little different now. There's not a board right now, so it's a little open until the governor appoints a board to allocate those dollars. So there is a window of opportunity, so that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anybody else? Okay. Next slide.
Next slide is the CRAs, is a community redevelopment agencies. It's not right. It's what I'm recommending is $159,769. That's a $22,254 increase for Sebastian. Fellsmere, the budget's $1,425. It's a $525 increase. Basically, the community redevelopment agency, what it is you get a baseline year, and anytime the ad valorem values go up, they get the differential. They get the differential of that money, and we have to write a check to the CRAs for that amount, and that's what it is.
What year were these CRAs created?
Different years. I can't remember. Actually, they went down in the recession. Obviously, we didn't have to cut checks, and now we're having to.
No, I get that, but I was just wondering what that bench line is, or is it just,
we can look that up at the break. I can't remember.
I think Fellsmere's fairly new.
Yeah, Fellsmere's was 2005. Sebastian had an initial one done in 1994. That's when they set their base year. They didn't start collecting the funds until like about 2000. And then they had an addition. They expanded the boundaries in 2003. And then the Fellsmere one is 2005 for the base year.
When do they expire?
30 years from their creation or last amendment. So if you
amend the district, it starts over.
You can continue.
If you amend the district boundaries, the 30 years starts over.
Sounds like the FMPA.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Nonprofit organizations, mental health, we're recommending $20,000, same as last year. Harvest and food outreach, we're recommending $6,000, $2,000 more than last year. 211, we're recommending the same amount, $7,000. Veterans Council, we're recommending $77,010. That's a $1,510 increase, or 2%. CURB, which doesn't come out of the general fund, comes out of the solid waste fund, we're recommending $40,539, the same as last year. A lot of these agencies requested more, and we didn't recommend it, so you might have people here that want to speak and discuss their request.
Mr. Chairman, on the 211, I think they provide a phenomenal service for the county. 2014, they handled over 5,000 calls from Indian River County. Sadly enough, 66 of those calls were suicide related. So I think it's a huge asset. They've come to us, asked $10,000 in the past, and I think this year I'd like to see us honor their request for $3,000 more. That would put us right even with Martin County, which is kind of the same size and call volume. Martin County, I think, does 10,500, so we would be kind of close to that. As you might know, they not only the referral service they provide, but they also have a program they call it Sunshine, where seniors can sign up and they get a call every day to check in on them to make sure they're okay. And then they've also started a new program, Help Me Grow, which is targeted towards at-risk kids. So I think they do a lot for the 7,000 in our community that we put in. And I'd like to see us honor their request for 3,000 more for 10,000.
Okay, I could go with that.
Actually,
And just like to say, Chairman, that the reverse calling where the elderly get that call once per day sometimes is the only call they get from anybody. And it's a good welfare check for them to, if they don't answer. I do have some issues with their administrative compensation overall, but I think the value that they're bringing and what we're contributing, that extra amount would be a wise expense.
In full disclosure, I'd like to mention organizations that asked for funding that I did not recommend, so that they have. So it can be heard. The Early Learning Coalition requested $20,000.
Hold on one second before we go too far in that. Susan, I see that you're here. Do you, anybody that we've already covered? John, you're just hanging around, right? Okay. Well, okay. All right.
There might be issues, John. We need you.
Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Susan Booz, Executive Director of 211 Helpline. You all said it very well. The big issue for us is to get the word out that 211 is there for people when they're in crisis, contemplating suicide, or needing to get connected to services. The reason we're asking for the $3,000 is to increase the awareness in the community. We have Paige Woodward, who is out in the community, but we need to do a little bit more in that area so that people know that there is some place they can call 24 hours a day. We've brought the Sunshine Program to Indian River County, and now the Help Me Grow effort. So we would appreciate your support, and you all said it very well, so I don't think I need to say any more. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your efforts, and as we discussed that, but I also have the same reservation with the administrative compensation package. I think that we could meet in between somewhere, and I have requested that, and you did not think that that was appropriate. All good and fine. We're good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and when we have an organization that finds to compensate their administration to a higher value, that does come into the equation. So I'm not fond of the increase, but I appreciate what you do.
Well, and the increase does not go to compensation. It goes to the direct service, and it goes to not to the Palm Beach County or the other counties' operations, and the majority of the administrative package is funded in Palm Beach County because of the history of the agency in the competitive salaries. So the salary related to the Treasure Coast amounts to about $25,000. We've talked about it. I understand your concern.
Over $160,000 is quite a lofty salary for an individual.
How much?
I believe that you quoted it as $160,000.
No, that's not.
Well, we have some records that indicate that. I'm not going to debate the numbers with you today.
I'll get back with you and give you the records so that you can see what it actually is. Appreciate your support. We keep trying to bring programs and services to Indian River County with the Sunshine and the Help Me Grow. We need to get the word out that we are available, and that's why we're asking for the $3,000 designated for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
My name is Dr. Bob Ragnoli. I'm the Executive Director of the Mental Health Association in Indian River County. I want to thank you for continuing to fund us this year, and just tell you a couple of things about what we do. At our walk-in center, we provide mental health screenings and a full array of mental health services. And probably in this, since last year, they're up about 15 to 20%. We've just about doubled our psychiatry services by bringing on a University of Florida community psychiatry resident, and I personally supervise 3 predoctoral clinical psychology practicum students. So we're able to provide pretty high-level services at relatively low cost. And just wanted to let you know that we've been selected as the lead agency by the Mental Health Collaborative in terms of forming the connections team. Good. So we hope to continue to do good work in the mental health area in Indian River County over the next year.
That's great. Congratulations. Thank you.
And then just thank you. With the mental health court that we initiated with the sheriff and Judge Cox, then some of those I guess you call them clients now, or patients?
Yes,
Funnel
yes.
through your
Yes,
organization?
actually, we have another program, our drop-in center program, and yesterday in the Press Journal, it did indicate that that first person who was graduating,
Right,
one of the
yeah.
components was attending our drop-in center.
Good,
Open
okay.
Monday through Friday, I'm sorry, 365 days a year, from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, where they can go and participate in a recovery program. Yeah, so we're excited to continue with that, and we've actually received about 4 referrals for other mental health services
Okay, good.
from Carlene Russ. Yeah,
Great.
so we're collaborating with them as
Very
well.
good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the nonprofits? All right, next.
Go ahead. Next, I think we're going to do the quasi-nonprofit organizations. And these are organizations that if they didn't...
Hold on one second, I see, is it veterans? That's all right. No problem, go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, River County. My name is Doy Demsick. It's the first time ever I'm too tall for something. So I am the program manager. I work with Colonel Tony Young back there. We're so excited about the support we've received from the county, from you commissioners. I'm proud to say that between now and January, we've transported over 1,200 veterans to and from medical appointments, no charge to them. So we're very proud of those figures. Got a question, sir? Oh, okay. Sorry. That's due to the grant that we've received. So we're very proud of that. We're also proud of the golf tournament that we just had, and all of our awesome commissioners came out and supported that. So we're super pumped about that. And actually, interesting story. Someone saw an article about that coverage from the golf tournament that you supported, and called me up and said, "Hey, we want help. We want help paying for a medical treatment of some kind." And I said, "Hey, why don't we get you down to the VA?" And they're like, "Oh, that's too far. We don't have the money to transport down to the VA." And I'm like, "Oh, well, we got the perfect system for you. We got a bus that'll take you right there and back." So now we're taking that veteran down. They're going to get a hearing aid. So it's just it's interesting the way that your support not only for the actual transportation, but your support to the golf tournament turned into more support for the transportation. So anyway, I'm very proud to be a veteran in Indian River County. We're a county that truly supports our nation's veterans. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Chairman, I do have one question to do, if I might. Maybe he knows the answer to this. I know in sitting in on the last Veterans Medical Planning discussion that was held in these chambers about probably 2 months ago, there was some questions of some of the service providers in the county, and the veterans groups, that some of them are now they have been traditionally scheduled to West Palm, where we have that good transportation network. Now some are being scheduled to go maybe to the Orlando area, or services not in our traditional way. Has that been affecting, are we having to look at send buses both north and south now, or are we still just primarily doing the south?
Well, we're certainly doing the buses to West Palm Beach. We also have a van that takes people to medical appointments around town.
Okay.
In terms of some of our northern areas going to a different clinic, I think that's an issue we're currently looking at, sir. You got me back here, sir?
Good morning. Yesterday we had our
Colonel Young, go ahead. You have your name for the.
Oh, sure. My name is Tony Young, Colonel Anthony W. Young, President for the Veterans Council. We had our Upward American Veterans meeting yesterday, which hold every couple of weeks. And one of the points that came up there was the discussion of the medical support for Sebastian area. We are not restricting where our veterans go, and if you're in the north part of the county and you want to go to Vieira, to the clinic there, that's your discretion. The buses that we are provided from West Palm go to West Palm. So if a veteran wants to have transportation provided to go to the Vieira clinic, there is a bus from Brevard County that is in the, I can't remember the name of the town, just to the north of the Sebastian border. But that is a service that's available to them. So I can't tell you the numbers that are being supported there, but I can tell you that as a result of our engagement with the clinic here, they are very responsive. So that really doesn't address so much, the question that was raised for West Palm. They'll be back in August to our council meeting, and we'll continue to investigate, if there are any other options that they want to provide us for transportation assistance. But we can't limit any veteran that wants to go to Vera to the clinic. So
they may get an earlier appointment slot by going there versus.
Well,
really,
it's a comfort. It's the rub by going to Vera is the doctors may refer the veterans to Orlando.
Right.
And when they pick medical centers, West Palm is a better medical center. It's more responsive. At least that's in the eyes of the veterans.
So to kind of keep us surprised if we start having to move a lot of our Sebastian North County veterans that they need to go not to West Palm for their service. If that number continues to grow, if we need to make adjustments or whatever.
Well, you have great cooperation with the Barefoot Bay. I think that's
Correct.
the area that
Correct.
we're discussing.
Right. Yeah.
And that is
And
working
a
itself out.
lot of the, what do you want to call it, South Brevard comes to Sebastian, so our engagement with veterans draws from other counties, so it's interesting, for sure.
Well, thanks for all the great work you guys do.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. After the veterans, go ahead with the quasis. Joe? Jason?
Pardon?
The quasi-nonprofit.
Yeah. The quasi-nonprofits are the agencies which they do a service that if they didn't do, we would have to do, or we have contractual arrangements for them to do services. The first one is senior resources, and that's for the bus system. And we're recommending $750,000, which is a $50,000 increase, or 7.1%. This is a match for the grant. The more successful they are at getting grants, the more the match is to deliver the bus system services. Below is the senior resources grants. That's the amount we got in grants from either a federal or state agency this year. That's why it's zero in the current year. I mean, in the proposed year for next year. This year we got $2,152,409. The Gifford Youth Activity Center, we're recommending $90,000. That's a $3,181 increase, or 3.7%.
Hey, Joe, just Gifford Youth Achievement Center now. They upgraded their name.
I forget when people do.
You're so used to saying the activity, but yeah, it's achievement. So.
Also, Mr. Chairman, on that, does that include?
Jason's supposed to catch that, by the way.
Your next budget director will, won't he?
Does a little mark on your right hand, sir.
Does that amount recommended, the $90,000, include the additional lifeguard fees during the winter season, or is that going to come up under?
Well, this is a contractual arrangement for running the gym.
The actual.
Yeah, the pool.
It's recreation.
The pools and recreation is a separate department.
Okay.
In the MSTU. This is what we give the Gifford Youth. What is it? The Gifford Achievement Center.
Same acronym. YAC.
It's a Gifford Achievement Center. It's to help run the programs there. We subsidize it and help pay the electric for that gymnasium.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The Progressive Civic League is $12,185. No increase from last year. Humane Society, $395,547. That's for when we drop animals off for animal control. No increase. Treasure Coast Homeless Services, $15,270. No increase from last year.
Joe, next year when we do these, I mean, that line on senior resources, my understanding is senior resources is probably going to be applying for grants for the coming year. And so when we see that number that's zero next year under the 215-16 column, that's going to have a number in it, correct?
I mean, we could put that number, yeah. We could.
I mean, my point is, to me, it's more apples to apples if on the bottom on total, if somebody looked at the total quasi-nonprofits very quickly, it looked like there was a huge drop. So similar to the budget statement line I asked you
We
to
could
put in,
do it.
It'd be nice to put that line in there so we can get more apples to apples, which would really indicate that it's a slight increase. I'm happy, I mean, I've got no problem with the slight increase, but it's almost impossible for anybody watching this to really understand what's happening. So if you could put in that line, we
That's
should
a good
address it
point.
that
We'll
way.
do that.
I'd appreciate it.
In the past, that's a good point, we'll do that. Why I don't do it, I don't like to, you never know what's going to happen with state legislature or federal government and grant money. So, but in the
that's why
future, we'll do that.
That
on
might
this
just
area.
drop below in the future.
I apologize, I should have thought of
All
that.
right.
Mr. Gibson, welcome.
Good morning, Godfrey Gibson. I'd just like to speak to about 3 things here. The Aquatic Center, I don't know if anybody was here, I got a little late, but I would just like to say we thank you all for cooperating and working with us of keeping that facilities open, and we're working very hard to uphold our part in making it a success. And as we look and read around and listen to the news every day, kids are being drowned. And I just heard yesterday one over in Disney World got drowned when they got away from their parents. And that is one thing that facility is serving now is the youth of that community and teaching swimming lessons, and also a lot of adults. And I'm trying to get out there to get enough nerve to get over to learn myself. So we just want to thank you for that. And as you know, kids are drawn to water, and it's been very successful in getting swimming lessons for that, and the community is grateful for that. Also, as Vice Chairman of the Gifford Achievement Center, we just like to thank you also for your continued support. And as Director of the center there, Community Center, Progressive Civic League, on behalf of President Joe Allen III and the board and the members, we just want to thank you for your continued cooperation. The building, we're working very hard to keep it up, and we've made some improvements, so if you ever like to come up and see it, we have volunteers if you haven't been around to fix our grounds up. And so if you're ever up that way, just stop by and check on it, and we just want to say we appreciate your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Anything else? Let's see, Senior Resource, Karen, y'all don't feel like you have to say something if you don't want to, but I don't want anybody to be overlooked if they do.
No, I just want to say, Karen Deagle, Senior Resource Association CEO, thank you for your continued support with the transit system. This year we are on track to end the year at about 1.2 million trips, which is about 11% increase over last year. That, of course, is contributed by the additional funding that you gave last year for the 3 extra hours, 5 days a week. So thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Karen, when does the beach shuttle start?
It started July 1st.
Okay. Any early numbers or?
Most recent, we're doing approximately 40 trips throughout the week each day and 70 on the weekend. We are finding that most of the participating entities are asking their employees to use it on the weekends more right now.
Mhm.
Come season, we understand it's going to be mandatory for the employees to use it during the week as well. So we're working with them, but the numbers are continuing to increase.
Good. Okay. Great.
That concludes the quasi-nonprofits.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. During yesterday's commission meeting, some of the people watching from home could not see the illustrations that we would see on the screen when somebody would present something. And I don't know if what we're seeing is what they see at home, or because some things we were seeing other people didn't see.
Well, sometimes, upstairs they've got to make a decision whether they're going to focus on the commissioners or this screen, what's on the thing. And if it's political in nature, we instruct them not to put it in the screen. I'll just be honest with you. So, because we don't, this is, if it was political in nature, I suggest to my staff they don't put it up on the screen because it shouldn't be put up.
Great,
in our
thank you.
opinion.
But so they can see everything we're doing
Yes,
today.
and this is a decision that's got to be made upstairs, and they try, if there's a speaker speaking, to focus on that speaker or on the item that's on the screen or on the.
Right, okay, so they're up there kind of.
Yes.
Making judgment calls. Great, thank you.
And you can't do both, so sometimes.
Right.
Okay. Next.
Next, I think this is Dory Schlossberg, which is which is on traffic tickets. Wait. We can do streetlights and come back to that.
Commissioners aren't warming up.
I need some more water.
We'll have to have a break.
Yeah, it's
Just
empty.
read it in. Just read it in.
Here you go, Commissioner. I don't want you to go dry in the middle of it.
Just listed there.
Okay, on page 68 of the agenda, we have Dory Schlossberg. The current year budget is $7,776. Next year's budget is $38,350. We have recommended $25,000 to the school district and $13,350 to St. Edwards. Those are the two eligible applicants in the county. The recommended amount, as you can see about 2/3 of the way down the screen there, is the same amount that was requested by both agencies. We have enough funds to fund the entire request for each.
Mr. Chairman, and also Representative Irving Schlossberg sends his thanks and appreciation to us caring for that, which is a memory of his daughter that was killed in an accident.
Page 2. Next, we have the land acquisition bonds. The land acquisition bonds, this is a debt service payoff, the land acquisition $50 million bond issue. The debt service is $4,537,636. That's $212,893 less than last year. That's because of the refunding. The millage rate is 0.3315, and that's 0.0379 less than last year.
Joe, what page is that on in our book?
That is on page 34 of your book.
I think this is another good example of where good fiscal policy has allowed us to have good, strong reserves, and then we can use those funds to pay off some of these higher interest bonds and end up with a significant savings to the taxpayer. So again, Jason and Joe, congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Next, we have the street lights. These are per parcel acre assessments. I'm going to just read them into the record. Gifford's $25, Laurelwood's $30, Rockridge is $8, Bureau Highlands is $33, Pocos Point is $11, Laurel Court is $27, Terra Linda is $21, Vera Shores is $19, Exora Park is $17, Royal Ponciana is $32, Roseland is $1, Whispering Pines is $16, The Moorings is $10, Walker's Glen is $22, Glendale Lakes is $40, Florealton Beach is $50, West Wabasso is $21.
Joe, what would make those go up?
Pardon?
What would make those go up?
Well, there's two things. If you add lights, we have street lighting agreements. Like we get a lot of requests in the Gifford area to add more lights every year. And when you add the lights, we usually lease the pole and the light. We have what we call intergovernmental agreements with FP&L, City of Vero Beach. And FP&L and the City of Vero Beach I can't remember them ever increasing the street light amount. That's another thing that could do it, but I can never remember either of them increasing that in my 34 years.
All right.
So next we have the Vero Lakes Estates MSBU, and this is for drainage and roads, $50 per parcel acre. And we have the East Gifford Stormwater MSBU, and that's $10, same as last year. We're also got the new ones. Oceanside Street Lighting, $57. Oceanside Street Paving, $415. And Oslo Park Street Lighting, $26.
Okay, we've got somebody. Yes, ma'am, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Valerie Brandt Wilson, and I'm out of curiosity. I would like to know how were the streetlights determined, assessment for each community? I remember back in the days when Gifford Progressive Civic League up on the Ralph Lundy, the history of the Gifford streetlight came due to the fact that we wanted the parks lighting, etc. However, based on Mr. Barrett, is that how you pronounce it? Stated that street lighting assessment is based on the amount of requests for lighting. So please give me some history.
We get a lot of requests. What happened is,
let's start with the Lundy Park. And the reason for that, the lighting in that park, that is all recreational. Okay? So for the ball fields and all that, was that one of your questions?
No, I wanted to know, how do you determine which, the assessment for each area, such as the Morian only had $1, Gifford area has, I think, $25, Rock Ridge.
Can we go back to that?
yes, that's based on the level of service and how many lights you have. Every year, when you look at that, for instance, when you look at Roseland, that's just down Roseland Road, and there's a lot of parcels there. That's just along Roseland Road for lighting, for turning into the subdivisions. So there's a very low level of lighting there.
But
what happens?
It's also per parcel.
Yeah, what happens is we get bills from FP&L City of Vero Beach for that specific area, the lights in that area, and we divide it by the number of parcels, and that's how we come up with the fee. So in recent years, we've had a lot of requests for safety in the Gifford area, and we've been increasing them. And the requests usually come through the Progressive League.
But I was under the impression when the first request for giving an extra tax for the citizens in Gifford was for the whole lighting of Gifford area.
Yes.
So now you're telling me that the reason that it is at $25 is due to the fact that we're getting extra requests. But I thought that the taxing district for lighting came about because there was no lighting out there initially back in the 60s.
That's true. They requested that we create the street lighting district and install lightings. All of our subdivisions do not have lights. The only subdivisions that have lights, that unless there's a homeowners association, and if there are these, when we create them, we do not put street lights in every subdivision. And if they are, now they're required in the new land development codes, but that's paid by the homeowners association.
Okay.
Did that help you?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bragg. Okay, next.
Enterprise funds. We're going to go to the enterprise funds, page 45. Let me get to that page. And I will read in the enterprise. I will read in the enterprise funds. Hang on, let me get there. The first enterprise fund we have is the golf course. The proposed budget is $2,781,600. That's a $27,679 increase.
Let's stop at that for a minute.
Yes.
Having the opportunity to be out there the other day with the veterans golf tournament and looking at the facilities are first class. And I think that really, as I understand it from talking with the golf pro out there, we've got $1 million renovation of the irrigation system complete. The other one is about 5 years behind it, but in chronological age, probably a year behind it and needing to be repaired. Correct?
Yes, I think.
And so we're looking at probably what's going to be another $1 million. My question is how long before they, in your opinion, can we make it so that the golf course pays back the interfund borrowing that we did for the first renovations to the next year, and then so that the year after that will be, in theory, will we be able to cash fund it for the next, for the other one after?
We're trying to, here's what we've got planned. I won't be here, but here's what we've got planned. We've got planned that we'll put so much for every round of golf in for capital improvements. If we put $3, our debt service was $654,000 roughly for the golf course, or $5 a round. The debt service on the golf course was $5 per round of golf. You roughly have 120,000 rounds a year. So I suggest, I won't be here, that you take $3 and you put it in a fund every year for renewal and replacement, which will generate you roughly $360,000 for renewal and replacement on the golf course over time to make it a class course forever. That's my recommendation. The other two, since there's $5 going to debt service, I would suggest you reduce the rates and be a good steward of the public's money. But my golf pro thinks it's too good of a deal as it is.
Well,
or else put the whole $5 back in to renewal and replacement.
And I would, what I'm thinking of, the one thing that is missing out there, in my opinion, that you,
we're building this up now.
Let me prepare myself for this.
You were out of town, but the one thing that I really see that is missing from no, but I would use the facility. I would use the facility, and the community would use the facility a lot more if we could have more of a complex there for events, and so much so that I'm not talking about like the golf pros area or the restaurant. More of a, whenever you go to these other clubs, they've got a structure where you can actually host events and kind of dovetail with what would go along in a golf tournament, but more importantly, what would be a community asset. Another one of these things that I'm thinking about, similar to what we're doing at the South County Park with making some improvements, what we're doing at the shooting range, it seems to me that this part of the golf course, to be able to have some type of a larger facility, I'm talking perhaps a 10,000 square foot facility where you could actually have a venue in a county asset like that.
You know, I think that when you're looking, that's a decision in the 3 to 5 year range that you could make, because the new irrigation system, we're going to pay for the old irrigation system next year. The new irrigation system is going to run about $1,200,000 to $300,000. So that's 3 years of your renewal and replacement money. So on a 5 year, we have discussed looking at expanding the facility to have that. Joe Bear's a little debt adverse, so I would, that's the only concern. In looking at those facilities across the state, those kind of facilities usually lose money, so it would have to be offset by those kind of facilities. Historically, by governments, lose money.
And, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
It's one thing to be able to provide a reasonably priced golf course for citizens of Indian River County, but I'm not sure if we're not going down the wrong road if we try to basically build a nice country club for everybody. I mean, there's that one aspect of it, but more importantly, I believe in Indian River County we have a lot of very nice country clubs that, since the recession, are still having a very hard time. So for us to use tax dollars, which are basically going to compete with some of their services, I find, at least at this time, problematic. So, those are my hesitations. I certainly haven't thought the whole thing out.
And I can say I haven't either, but I'm looking 3 years down the road of what I'm looking at.
Again, yeah, I understand, but
and doing a lot of doing a lot of charity events at a lot of these venues. The competition for them is they're booked, as I understand. Those that are not public, anyhow. Or, for example, if you're going to have an event somewhere, you've normally got to have somebody that's a member of that community, I guess, to be your host for some of these things. And like the Shooting Industry Masters, for example. When we had them in town, Dodgertown was a nice venue, but it was hot. And, it was kind of scattered out. I don't know if did you go to the opening night there? Okay. It was scattered out a little bit. And I'm just thinking of things like that where you're bringing in 600, 700 people for an event. And I'm just looking at ways to continuously to try to build on these assets to continue to get people to come in here into this community to spend their money and then leave again. I think we've got some significant, we're starting to see really this start to pay off. And in speaking with some of the individuals out there, they would like to upgrade maybe the restaurant and maybe the cafe and maybe the clubhouse. And I'm just trying to think if we do that.
I understand that, but the tension, again, is where does the government activity then start to compete more and more with the private side? I'm not sure. I'm not saying I know exactly where that is. That's just I just wanted to, at this point, since you brought it up, express my hesitation.
Sure. And I would not be doing this if it was not for an enterprise part of this.
I understand, but I recall that the shooting range started as an enterprise fund and never made it, and I would hate to see the golf course transition from an enterprise fund to something that's no longer making it.
I would fix it. I'd venture to say once we finally
I
get the permit.
understand, once the crap, I got that, and I hope we get out, but for the last 6 years, it's not been an enterprise fund. Those things are very slippery slopes, and when you get, as Mr. Baird said, those bigger, larger facilities often don't end up paying for themselves, often have a lot of dead space when they're not used, which I think would be the case of a public facility like that, and again, puts us in the position where we no longer have as much control over the asset as we did when it was a simpler type thing. Again, the more complex we make things, I think the more difficult it is to manage it over time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add in a little on that. First of all, I am a non-golfer, but I like the facility out there, and the staff we have do a great job of running it. Even without looking at growing it into a facility, it seems like if you have even a normal day of play during season, that little room is probably pretty small from the number of players that play, especially during your Thanksgiving to Easter time, whether it's an expansion of the current one, something new, maybe at some point saying, let's come back with maybe 3 options. Bump out what you have, option 1. Option 2 is something standalone, but something that, if it's standalone out there, that would complement the other outreach efforts we're doing that help bring in things like the Masters and the other ones. This kind of drifts into another area, but on the tourist tax dollars we get in, as that number continues to grow, at some point, let's say it's $1 million, should we fully spend the $1 million on promotion, or should we say anything above X amount we should start reinvesting into additional assets to continue to grow our draw, whether it's that or something else?
But I think we should be careful here. Let's not ruin a good thing. You've got 4 events a year that you have 600 people. You've got 365 days a year. Let's air condition that. Okay. Let's look at those costs. I think you've got to be careful what you do. You can overbuild those things. And truthfully, we try, and when we bring events, and I would hate to bring the tourist tax money into here. It takes it from a pure enterprise fund. We've got probably the most successful golf course because we didn't do those things that you're talking about.
And I don't doubt
they break even.
I get what you're saying.
We didn't overbuild the clubhouse.
Joe, Commissioner Fletcher, were you there for the awards or at the end of it?
Yeah,
I had to leave.
I was there all day, and we have probably one of the finest golf facilities at Sandridge, and it was a very successful day for all the veterans who participated and all those who supported. It was tight. No denying that it was tight. And it gets tight a few times a year.
Well, what I hear, Commissioner, is, and I hear there is not an open Saturday for a tournament all year.
Oh, that's not.
That's what I was told.
There's not an open.
There is not. If you want a tournament, they have tournaments booked all year long on Saturdays.
Well, Mike is here. He might be
I
able to shed some light on that. I drew you right in there.
Because I asked a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I don't think that's true. Is it?
Well, I'm not making it up. That's what I was told.
It's mostly true. We have very few open dates for tournaments over the year during the weekends. Now, that may include open dates, maybe Sundays.
No. I'm talking Saturday. I was told that there's not an open Saturday.
That's very close to true, if not true.
And whenever you have, and I don't golf and I don't do the tournaments and that kind of stuff, but whenever you do, you pull everybody in there together for the awards and for that kind of stuff, and it's just. What do we have, 125?
Yeah, we can issue more debt. We're proud of paying off debt.
There was about 140 people in that room, and it was tight. People were shoulder to shoulder. Well agreed. And again, I am a non-golfer. And some of you should also admit, after being there, that you're non-golfers. Mike, no, Mike did pretty well. He actually was in fourth place.
Mike, give me your thoughts on it.
Let me make a suggestion. As this existing facility is deficient, it does hold us back from attracting additional quality events. Now, we have smaller events that we hold, but we lose larger events to other facilities and they come to us because of our price points. Our price points are very friendly to their mission, which is to raise money for nonprofits. So keep in mind that as we explore the wisdom of Commissioner Davis's suggestion, which may be a longer-term capital investment that would combine a pro shop and restaurant on the first floor and the room on the second floor, which would mostly lay dark unless there's a tournament. So that may not be where the county wants to go with the input of the administrator and the commission's decision ultimately. But in the interim, we do have a $20,000 commitment from the existing vendor. Now, that was what won them the bid. I've been holding off on implementing that and counting the days in the summertime because this is the time to do it, because potentially the $20,000 may not be sufficient to bring it up to speed. So potentially we were going to propose a couple of options, and one of which included proposing some matching funds from the county to just take the existing facility, and Commissioner Davis, you were there, if you extend the wall out to the porch and enclose it, then you could fit all of the tournament participants in one room.
A little better anyhow.
And that would be nice because
You
it's
could
all
probably
under
get 200
air
people in there.
and still preserve the porch. So we were thinking of that, and then you don't have to get into a major capital expenditure that you're discussing until maybe later on in life when there's an appetite for it perhaps. But in the short term, we definitely want to move forward on the $20,000 because we have that under contractual obligation. And so I've asked for some quotes on what $20,000 would do to that room, and perhaps an option where we utilize some of the increase in revenues that we're enjoying this season to offset or to match to make the existing facility adequate.
I appreciate that update, and we did spend quite a bit of time just sitting there talking about things like that. And I don't know, I kind of walk around with our county facilities now with an eye looking at, okay, if we spend a few dollars, what will it cause as far as a draw, a benefit, what's holding it back from it being fully utilized, and those kind of things in the community. And there's something there, and I don't golf enough to really get it, but there's something there that's missing that can be enhanced with the pro shop and the snack bar or whatever it is. And it's little things like, I mean, there's not a hood to be able to do French fries, or I mean, and how. Don't get me wrong, maybe it's because we didn't do that, Joe, that it is so successful. But I see something there that for a few dollars added to it, long-term vision can make make it hit on all 8 cylinders a little bit better.
Okay, and my point, the more we have this conversation, the more my stomach's churning. I mean, as I think Mike mentioned, a lot of people come to this golf course because of the price points are lower. The price points, one of the reasons the price points are lower is because we're able to do inter-fund loans. We're basically able to use taxpayer dollars to keep the rates low in competition with the private sector, which makes the costs lower. I mean, you can slice this one any number of ways, but at the end of the day, we're setting up an enterprise fund, which is basically saying we're going to run the business to make a profit, which is in direct competition with the private sector. And it doesn't bother me that they can't make French fries there, because there are plenty of restaurants, private sector restaurants in the community that do make French fries and other things. And the more appealing we make it, then the more people who aren't going to go to local restaurants and contribute to them. So
You're wrong. Okay, now that I've got that off my chest, the way I look at this, Joe, when did we pay off the bonds?
Well, we didn't. We paid them off early because we did an interfund loan.
And how much?
They would be paid off in 2015-16.
We paid them off early.
And
how much was that bond payment annually?
$650,000 roughly.
Okay, so as far as borrowing and all those other kind of things, where it sits right now is basically we paid off the debt with this enterprise fund. And so to me, it's appropriate to look at improvements, and I think the irrigation system was a prudent improvement. And as far as some of these other things that which the golf courses right now do you know of that are public?
Well,
and the reason why I say that is Point West is no longer even open to the public. And a lot of people are saying that's very similar to, that's kind of why we're benefiting so much at Sandridge, is because the public access to some of these golf courses are reduced.
And the Vista Plantation's one that's open, because how I know is when we go to, they always call me and tell me my rates are killing them. They're private. But that was a purpose of the golf course when we built it for recreation, was golf courses can be an expensive sport, and we put a low price point for those that couldn't afford to be in a private club.
And it's working.
And it's working.
Yes.
But I think, and I think you keep it at its purest form and it works. I think we get called by all kinds of golf courses all over the state, say, how are you making this work in counties and cities? And I say, you keep it to its purest form. Do not overbuild stuff.
I haven't been down to Martin County, so I don't know, but do they have
Martin's done a lot of product.
I know that, but what's
they're asking for information from us. The golf course has been very successful. It's good, and it's a quality course. And down there, I think your decision on that is 3 to 5 years, because we're going to have to do the other irrigation system, which is $1.2 million. That's part of. And golf carts, we're going to have to buy new golf carts, which the debt service knows. Yeah, so it's, your decision would be 2 to 3 years down the road after you've done those things. The irrigation's a renewal and replacement to keep the quality of the course up. And after that, you make a decision on, do you want to do a bigger clubhouse? Obviously, you're going to have to issue debt to do that.
No, and okay, we've satisfied that. I'm just looking at this, though, and from the standpoint of, there's not any of these courses that are out there, with the exception of 2 municipal courses that I know of in the county. They can all go private anytime, and most of them have. And so, with that being the case, that's exactly how I view our shooting range. There is a shooting range that's open to the public for sporting plays, but all that it would take is a vote by the board of directors, and it goes private. And so, as far as the competition, and then boiling it down to competing with French fries with this, that way misses the point, in my opinion. And that's why, so if I come across a little brash about being wrong, I apologize, but that's not, competition with fries is not where I'm looking at with this.
Well, I understand, but you're moving away from competition in golf. That's the point that I'm making.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. I think we're getting off the point now, but.
If I could, I just want to say that we are able to break even with this as an enterprise fund. Almost everyone else I talk to, they get some support from the tax dollars. I know one of the things that we're always very proud of is that, hey, your tax dollars for the non-golfers aren't going to subsidize the golfers. And I'm worried about tinkering with the model too much, lest we get out of that situation. So not to say we don't make improvements going forward, but we need to, I think we need to be careful and evaluate anything we do going forward. Besides the irrigation, we've got the golf carts. We've got an interfund loan from the general fund to pay for the golf carts. We did it over 6 years because we initiated back when times were pretty bad. And now they're wanting to replace the golf carts before they're paid off. So we're kind of dealing with that right now. So the next time we go to do the golf carts, we may need to borrow money just for the golf carts in a shorter time period, so that's an additional draw. I also want to say the number of rounds, we're holding up pretty well, but golf overall is struggling. The number of rounds played out there today is significantly less than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I don't know how much we want to get into large additional investments in something where our round counts are down from 20 years ago.
Golf is shrinking 3 to 5% a year nationally, and we're very cognizant of that. Because it's a sport that's a big time factor, and so that's why we're watching it. That's why we keep it bare minimum right now. But it's been a very successful course, and I think we've got to thank Bob Kamaranetz and Bella both for that. It's been we're very fortunate to have them managing that course.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple other comments. With the change in the recent building code adoptions would make moving those areas out to open up the porched areas probably unrealistic, because the cost, once you would do that, would trigger making the entire building compliant to the new code, and it was built 30 years ago roughly, and when the codes were 90, and now they're almost double what that is. So that, I'd say, spend the least amount of dollars to figure out, even if we want to, as an option, because I think the cost, it's like when we did the evidence building out at the sheriff's office, by the time we retrofitted and brought that existing building up to code, we could have knocked it down and probably built the new one cheaper than retrofitting the existing one that was there.
Yeah, well, the recommendation would be storefront glass, but we haven't discussed that internally, so that's not being recommended at this time. But
Right.
I'm just emphasizing that we do have a $20,000 pot of money that I'd like to move forward on that's from the vendor. So we're moving forward with that, but that may trigger just a discussion internally as to whether.
Because you don't want to spend it if we're going to do something, bump out the building, that would give them a better way to spend their capital contribution in their facility, or their portion.
That commitment might exactly fit into the hood situation and many of the other fixtures that they have been lacking. Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. If we were to build it, they will come. I think that I've heard loud and clear from many of the attendees that is a prohibitive factor, that they can't congregate to that level of where a major tournament would mandate them to have that type of space, and they would actually want to have the tournament and then have activities as we did with the Masters tournament. We had it at the fairgrounds, some of the events, and the local restaurant venues. What I did see at the local restaurants, specifically the ones in Sebastian, the riverfront restaurants, they had a little space challenge too, and they did exactly that. They did the storefront glass out to the edge, and it did increase their volume by 30 to 40%. And I would see that could embrace it a little bit more if we did not have the sprinklers.
That's first. Without green grass, we don't have anything, yeah.
We need that. The turf has to be well managed. Right. And I do see that, but I think that maybe perhaps a hybrid would be, in the nearer future, would be that the glass front, as opposed to altering with all of the challenges of a larger building, and something that would be objectionable by so many others who, again, that would qualify as non-golfers, which I am too, but by the same token, I believe that if we did build something, they will come. So I think you're on track. I think it might be a little premature.
Oh, yeah.
One other thing, where do we send any expansion of that place's use of impact fee funds? Because it is recreation. You could put something in the EAR report that would say
It's enterprise.
Well, it's enterprise fund, so is utilities, and they charge an impact fee for water. So I don't see where it being.
Well,
I mean, it's standalone and operational, but
Right now, we don't add it in, but we can add it in and increase our impact fees. That's what's going to happen.
No, I'm not saying, we gave a bunch of it back because we didn't spend it on stuff a couple of years ago, like $1.3 million, because we didn't have a plan to do something with it. So
We couldn't, recreation impact fees, we actually had a plan to do the intergenerational. We couldn't afford to operate it during the recession, so we postponed it. Right. We could have, and we didn't want to waste the taxpayers' money and then put us in a bind, and I'd had to increase taxes for the operation of the intergenerational facility during the recession. And during the recession, there was a lot of competition. During the recession, our golf course increases in volume. People drop out of the country clubs. They can't afford them. And we saw during this recession that the golf course increased in revenue. It almost works counter to the economic environment. In the recession, you'll see activity increase in the golf course because people don't want to pay the country club dues, can't afford them. So they go to our golf course and golf. When the economy starts recovering, they go back to their country club and they rejoin. You see that. We've seen it through two sets of recessions in there. So it's an interesting.
But we're down from where we were 15 years ago, you said, right?
Our round counts, our highest year was 1993, 94. We had 120,000 rounds played that year. Last year we were 90,000.
Okay.
So I'm concerned about making big, huge bets in something that and that's not, we've done an excellent job of running that course. It's just the number of people playing golf is declining. You'll see that they used to build golf courses along with housing developments when they built them. They don't do that much anymore, because it's.
But the question on impact fees, that would be, as long as you would be the portion of increased capacity could be spent with recreational impact fees.
Take away from what you would do for other recreation, like, soccer and things like that.
You just have to look at it and weigh it out.
We could reprioritize it and use impact fees. We've just tried to keep this enterprise fund in the purest form, an enterprise fund. And
Mike, you got anything else you want to add?
No, sir.
Okay, let's move on.
Let's get the enterprise funds. You ready? The building department, we're recommending a budget of $2,447,555. That's $311,936 increase, or 14.6%. We're adding 3 people here due to the increased activity. Our revenues are up 21% this year. Utilities.
One question: what is the fund balance of the building department's enterprise fund?
What's the fund balance, Jason? Of the building department, I think it's about.
It's substantial. We've got over a year's worth of reserves there, which we try to do because of the unpredictable nature to help get us through downturns there.
And by the way, I've seen for the first time, I get weekly reports. For the first time this year, I've seen 2 weekly reports where the revenue was less than the expenses. So the economy isn't as good as people think out there.
2 weekly reports where the revenue was less than the expenses.
The week's expenses.
In which departments?
In the building department. So we're seeing
last 2 weeks.
The last 2 weeks, we've actually been starting to lose money. We've seen a decline. We don't know what that is yet. It could be the new building code everyone ran in before July 1.
Yeah.
And we've got that. And actually, we were surprised we didn't have the amount of applications before July 1 that we expected. It was a lot less than we had thought. We thought we were going to have like 100 with 30.
And I think if you look at the trend lines with the national builders, they tend to do things in bigger lumps, either at the end of a quarter period, they need to get a certain amount in the process. So you're going to see some ups and downs. That's interesting.
I think our fund balance is around $6 million, I think there. $5 million.
About 5 million. So you've got, that's a good 2 years.
Yeah, we lost money for 4 years running in there. So
I know, and we also paid $2 million for the space in the building to offset. I mean, we had set $6 million in there at one time.
And there are some additional upgrades that the building department's wanting to look at going forward to improve, like their computer system and the services.
And that could come out of their reserves.
That'll be an expenditure of those funds.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Utilities. The proposed budget is $38,897,022. That's $1,140,928 increase. We're adding 2 people here. Utility impact fees, we're proposing the same as last year, $971,850.
Where's the increased revenue coming from for the utilities to pay for the positions?
It's from, we just think our growth, we're seeing a little growth. It's, and we haven't reflected in here yet is the decrease in the debt service once we pay the bonds off. That's roughly $1,250,000. And it may be more than that with the refinancing. We'll have less debt service. Right. Any questions on the enterprise funds?
Is this a good, clean spot for a break? Just to let everybody stretch.
Yeah, and we've got people here for emergency services district, so you may want to take that before lunch. Let's get to everything else.
Yeah, come on up. Welcome.
Is this the public comment portion of
It
the
kind of
meeting?
is. Yes, ma'am. What?
I don't know if this is a venue, but my name is Donna Barfield. I live at 220 28th Road in Vero Beach, and it is off of 3rd Street Southwest. My husband and I live way at the end of a right-of-way road that has not been maintained. We are on Social Security, don't have the large funds necessary for maintenance. Neither do most of our neighbors. They're all on disability, Social Security, poor, and there's some renters. I submitted to Road and Bridges an application for a paved road on the county part of the road and was told they needed 50 feet wide of land to build. My request is for an exception to this rule because it would affect houses too close. The houses are, the area of the right-of-way is probably only 30 or 40 feet. Couldn't we just use 30 feet or so for a simple road, or could we just get it graded? The road is mountainous, it is kind of ridiculous, and because I'm a resident of Vero Beach, I just thought that I could come and request this.
I think I'll just have to talk with the Public Works Director. Let me get with him. I don't.
Yeah, we
can't make that decision. It's me.
It
I don't
seems to
know
me that
the
you
reason. I
should
don't
be
know
able to
if
get
we
it
own the
graded.
road. I don't know if it's a private road.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is
if
it
it's
a public
drainage.
road?
It's public. At the beginning of the road, it is a public road.
At the beginning.
What was
What
that
portions?
actual address again?
228.
That is it's off of 27th Avenue, so it's 3rd Street Southwest.
3rd Street Southwest.
It's actually part county and part private. It's
Yes.
divided up all the way back.
Yeah. See-
There used to be farmland, I guess.
The problem with it private, the private part of it.
Not the, but not the beginning.
Yeah,
The beginning is public.
We should be able to hit the beginning that's public. We could probably, but again, we'd have to look at it. But just because the county owns the road doesn't mean they do maintain it. My dirt road's that way. The county owns it, 2 miles of it, and I have to grade it myself. But
Maybe you have money and a lot of us don't.
oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, let me get your name and number, and we'll we'll have the Public Works Director, and we'll send the information back to the Commissioner so you guys are aware.
Thank you, Ms. Barfield.
Thank you.
But, yeah. All right, you want to take a quick break and then come back? Yeah, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. We'll be right back.
Real quick, that's the question. I'll just read them all in.
Okay.
And then we'll go to the Constitution.
All right, we're going to do the miscellaneous internals. We're going to read them all in, then we're going to go to the constitutionals. And that way we can let the high and mighty sheriff get out there to cuffing and stuffing people. Appreciate that. Joe or Jason, which one of y'all want to go first?
We're doing miscellaneous funds. Internal service. I'll go to internal service, throw it up on the screen, and we're off we go. We got internal services funds, fleet management, $3,654,973. This is a $300,745 decrease, mainly fuel costs. Risk management, $4,547,727. That's a $14,997 increase. Employee health insurance, $16,601,454, a $2,143,040 increase. GIS technology, it's $1,332,727. That's a $74,374 decrease.
I got one thing I'd like to ask here, and I don't even know what it is, but I'd like for staff to look into it, and my colleagues agree with me. On our county's website, they have software now that will recognize if you're on a laptop, if you're on a notebook, or you're on a cell phone. I would like for somebody to tell me what it would cost to bring us up to the 2015, to where when you go to the county's ircgov.com, it recognizes that what device you're on.
Okay.
Because more and more people are going to those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it can't be expensive.
Okay, we'll make sure we'll add that.
Any objection to that, Commissioner Solari? That's not competing against the private sector or anything?
Hell, I'm not even in the 20s.
Oh, that's right, you already have a cell phone.
Yeah, he's selling rotary dial.
Thank
Next,
you.
we have the miscellaneous funds. Traffic improvement fees, which is impact fee, $6,027,000. That's down $4,810,000. Additional impact fees, that's all the ones besides traffic, $1,460,250. That's a reduction of $3,715,457. Core facilities fund, 0. Section 8 rental, $2,118,305. That's down $37,647. Secondary road trust fund, $4,440,810. That's down $4,626,748. Special law enforcement, 0. Tree ordinances, $50,000, same as last year. Tourist development tax, $808,990. That's an increase of $13,012. 911 surcharge, $832,025. That is an increase of $22,262. Drug abuse fund, we're recommending 0. That's down $62,616. SHIP program, $695,135. That's up $34,895. And Metropolitan Planning Organization, recommending $715,332. That's down $230,233.
Joe,
$232.
What are we deleting that big out of MPO?
Well, that's reflected when we get grants during the year.
Right.
That'll go up.
Okay.
As we get grants during the year, and we don't know what we're going to get until they offer them from the federal level. So,
Right. Okay.
The multi-jurisdictional, you flipped it before I could read it. Multi-jurisdictional law enforcement is 0, and the other miscellaneous funds is the native uplands acquisition, $55,000. Beach restoration, we're recommending $1,317,367. That's a $5,108,809 decrease.
That's just where we're putting money in to start saving up for the next one?
Yes.
Okay.
And if we get, state money. NSP fund, 0. NSP 3, 0. Florida Boating Improvement Program, $64,000. That's basically, we do big projects, so it's very erratic. It's down $507,376.
On that, at what point can we start thinking about, and I know it was expensive, but repairing the Wabasso catwalks?
The Wabasso, I think that's a state road, right? That's state. So what we need to do is talk to them.
Yeah, that's right. The state did. We gave that back to them, didn't we?
Yeah, we'll get a hold of the state.
Let's start that, because that's another one of those community assets where, like when the Kiwanis takes kids fishing and that kind of stuff.
We can look at fine and things like
And that one,
too.
Commissioner, I'm happy to agree with you on.
Library.
And it's only 11:15 in the morning.
You hit the right plug for Bob.
Disability access programs, $20,000, same as last year. Intergovernmental grants, $663,957. That's down $63,114. Traffic education program, $38,350. That's up $30,574. Court facility surcharge, $148,524 recommended. That's down $511,275. Additional court costs, $115,340. That's up $14,254. Court technology fund, $452,686. That's up $20,380. And then land acquisition, Series 2006, $40,000. That's down $91,937.
One quick question on some of those. I don't know where it would be. As we continue to have the petition milling program, and as we continue to do and see some of the age start to show on some of these other milling roads like 8th Street, do we have a fund that we call fixing milling potholes?
We've got two funds. Road and Bridge, we always have money for resurfacing, which would be millings. Okay. And we also have it in our 109 fund, which is, that's 109 is the gas tax. Okay. And we use that money for roads and resurfacing.
Okay. Just as that starts to get, as we get more miles of millings, I didn't know whether or not we needed to start looking at
Yeah, we're increasing our resurfacing program. We, obviously in the recession, once again, we reduced it, and we're increasing it every year.
Okay, super.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if Beth, did you or Allison want to speak to the TDC, or you're good? Okay.
All right. The other debt and capital funds, Dodgertown bonds, it's $998,000. That's up $64,600. Dodgertown capital, $250,000. That's down $128,248.
You want to pull that over?
Optional 1 cent sales tax, $18,340,679. That's down $20,654,930.
Where are the stadium, Holman Stadium seats repairs?
They are right in that Dodgertown Capital Reserve Fund. And actually, they were installed this last week, most of them.
Okay.
So they're done.
That's all current year.
Yeah.
All right, super. Thanks.
Any questions? Now the constitutionals, the sheriff's here, and we could go over the constitutionals. The constitutionals, the clerk of the court is requesting $920,370. That's a $49,409 decrease, or 5.1%. Tax collector, we put in the same as last year, $1,265,104. Property appraiser is $3,247,739. That's up $248,991, or 8 point.
Question on that. Does that include, was it last year before when they came in for the software maintenance, or it was like a...
He's always got software maintenance in his budget.
It was either a capital or something that he came in at one time, and is that now, it should be rolled into the budget maybe?
Yeah, he's got 3 additional positions this year than he had last year, so that's a lot of the increase. The tax collector and the property appraiser, they go through Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue's never seen a budget they didn't think was high enough, so they've always increased them once they send them to them. On my 34 years, they have never decreased a budget. They've always increased what was submitted. I don't know why they call it budget review. I call it, I don't know what I call it. I call it bad management. But the sheriff's budget is $42,502,856. That's a $1,418,943 increase, or 3.5%. And that's a modest increase. The grant for the sheriff grant, that's a 0. Supervisor elections, $1,254,743. $178,253 increase, or 16.6%. Value Adjustment Board, that's $68,450. That's down $17,610. I would like to say we couldn't have brought the general fund in without the cooperation of the constitutionals, and they all cooperated this year, and we want to thank them, especially the sheriff, because just by nature he's a large portion of the budget, and he came in very conservative.
Sure. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, gentlemen. You know, I was in Fort Lauderdale for a conference yesterday and Monday, dealing with all 58 of the 67 sheriffs, talking about a variety of things, to include the future of law enforcement as fragile as law enforcement is in our state and our nation, and was bragging about our commission and specifically our administrator. Got home last night, turned on the BCC meeting from yesterday. I think I caught it starting about 10:25 a.m. and then I realized again, how resilient you guys are and how professional you are dealing with some hot topic items. And then later in that, probably around, I guess at 11 or midnight, Jason was on with his bond reduction, or paying off half of that, which is truly remarkable for our community. I do appreciate everything that you do. We have weathered this storm together over the last 5 or 7 years, and it's something we should be very, very proud of, with the legacy that everybody in this room has laid down, particularly with Mr. Baird being his last budget cycle for us. I know he'll be preparing next year's and helping others, but it is a luxury to live here, and we certainly appreciate it. Some of the specifics, if you have any questions, obviously I've met with each one of you individually and gone over our overall budget for our sheriff's office. Just a quick review, our high water mark at one point was 547 employees. Now it's down to 486. We continue to have the same volume of services or calls for service. Additionally, in the last month and a half in the state of Florida, although you may have read crime is down, we're beginning to see an uptick in crime throughout this state. We probably see that throughout the nation as well. Some of the things on the horizon include dealing with non-U.S. residents. There's a big movement that you'll be reading about in the future and more locally in the state of Florida, Palm Beach, Metro-Dade, and the areas. A terrible drug by the name of Flocka. You're going to be seeing and hearing more and more of that. That we believe we've already seen some instances of that right here in our community. So, specifically to our budget, gentlemen, as you see, the overall increase, I believe that again this year, as the board's trying to get away from optional sales tax for capital purchase for constitutions, and I agree with that. This year, the $400,000 coming out of the optional is to supplement our request, and then of course the other $193,000 comes from the 911 surcharge. So that brings us up to the total of the requested amount of $42,502,000, and I certainly appreciate that, and I can answer any of your questions that you may have. I do have an elaborate PowerPoint, but in the interest of your time and our time, I certainly appreciate it.
Sheriff, I believe I asked this before, just to confirm, in your budget is funds for the mental health court?
Actually, there is funds for the mental health administrator. As you know, before this board, we presented a large grant for not only mental health court, but we had another grant last week for the COPS grant. We are patiently awaiting that. We're prepared to absorb her salary. And I will be making another quarterly budget review to you, to this body of mental health court. Actually, we were poised to have our mental health team come in today. I think you're going to like some of the results. However, we need to be cautious as far as the spending goes. I may, Commissioner O'Brien, come back similar as I did last year and use, if there's any leftover dollars, to see if Mr. Baird and Mr. Brown can carry that over to continue the success. And I think that after a year, as you know, we started January 27th. I think if you see this progress, you're going to see we're going to have some better numbers to prove to you that it works. And then down the line, to sustain this, we'll be looking at some other options. But if we get this grant, which we'll know by the end of this fiscal, that is going to add another staff and some more dollars that I won't have to bother you with.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
I would like to thank the sheriff. We're very fortunate. You look around the state, sheriffs come in with these huge, and our sheriffs always cooperated and worked with us. And you see, if you look across the state, we're very fortunate. I'd like to thank them. I also need to correct one item. Jason just told me the Department of Revenue reduced the property appraiser's budget after my speech. He just received it this morning. So I apologize.
Yeah, they just did it because they knew you weren't going to be here next year, Joe.
Maybe I shouldn't have told everyone that, Joe.
Sheriff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
You're welcome. So we can plan forward then for the 42.508. And finally, I want to say, Mr. Baird's wore that same suit in all budget workshops, whether you know it or not. That's the 15th year that he's worn that exact suit.
And tie.
And tie. So go back, if you look through all the records, it looks like ditto. So thank you, gentlemen, and we're here to serve you.
Thank you. Jeff, you'd like to say something? Come on.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I just wanted to also give my thanks to the budget staff and to Joe Baird for the cooperation that we have between ourselves. That's not the norm around the state, so it's never something that we cannot overemphasize enough, the cooperation and the working relationship that we have with your staff and my staff. I'd also like to address an issue that came up yesterday in your board meeting about terrorist tax, specifically the short-term rentals, and I just want to give you an idea. Deputy County Attorney Bill DeBrawl and myself and my staff have been in conversations about what we can do going forward as far as enforcement. But the little amount of time that we have put into that, we've got 20 new counts on there paying approximately $1,400 a month, so in tourist tax that we're collecting. So we're going to put more of an aggressive effort into that, and we'll be coming back to the board at a later time with what the county attorney's office and my staff come up with. So.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I'd like to also thank Jeff. He's got a great staff over the years and just been tremendous. And he's right, a lot of places, the clerk's office and the board office do not get along. We're very fortunate. We have a very good working relationship, and he's got great staff. He is just, I think that says a lot about Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Dave, welcome.
Ready for the jacket for today?
Must be a new jacket.
All my
shirts are the cleaners. And they don't know he has it.
I would just like to explain that Joe, Kathy, your good friend from our budget department in Tallahassee, actually cut the budget yesterday.
I know.
One whole day before your speech. So
how much?
And also, there was a court decision. Mr. Reingold, are you aware of the court decision? That Broward County sued the property appraiser and the state got involved, and the judge ruled in favor of the property appraiser. And we've never had a problem. We've always worked very well with the commission, but two mighty individuals got involved in it down there, and it now seems the property appraiser has all new rights and authorities. I like the old system, but up in Tallahassee, they don't know what's going on. The whole set of new rules, and that's why I had to come in with a number that was so much higher. I had to estimate what your raise package may be and put it in there instead of waiting until you guys decide what it is and then we adjust the budget. We had to have everything in there up front. And as you know, you have reimposed your wage package, annual wage policy. And so once again, that used to be 5%. I don't know what you're going to do in the future, but we estimated 5% just as a precautionary measure. Also, we had to increase staff a little bit, and the reason is, believe it or not, the real estate market over the past 2 years has picked up rather dramatically here. Whether it stays up, if we knew the answer to that, we'd all be rich, and we'd be sitting someplace else. But we need that to handle the load, the new people coming in for exemptions, the processing of deeds, and the putting of the new buildings on the rolls. So that's why we've done it, and we've been able to do it with the help of some retirements at a pretty low cost. But retirements are going to end soon also. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. If not, I would like to thank you. Joe and I have always had a warm and wonderful relationship. In fact, I used to call him and Gary Wheeler up all the time and say, why don't you guys, try and get along? And we just never seem to be able to get past that bridge because they're both wonderful guys, but man, oh man, it was a bloodbath. Any questions, anything?
Commissioners, any questions or comments?
Okay.
Right.
Oh, a tent. You guys talking about building all these big buildings out at the golf tournament. The prayer breakfast uses a huge tent, holds, I don't know how many people, but well over 1,000. They use it for the Brevard Symphony when it comes down up at Johns Island or Windsor. For a couple of events a year, a big old tent they have portable air conditioning units could solve the problem as opposed to putting in high-priced solid facilities. And the way the law is now, you might even be able to get homestead on it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, that concludes, I believe, our constitutionals. We'll go into emergencies.
What about Leslie Swan?
Well, she's not here. Well, I guess we read the supervisor elections, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And They'll come. Maybe.
When they're here in the PM, if any would like to say anything, we'll
Yes,
certainly afford them the opportunity. Okay.
Next, we have the Emergency Services District. Sorry, I'm jumping all over. The total budget's $32,183,194. It's up $372,278, or 1.2%. We're adding additional 20 people here. One is to open the 17 are to open the fire station, 13, which is 4th Street and 43rd. That's about $1.8 million. We're also recommending we add 3 battalion chiefs. Right now, we've only got 3 countywide for operations. We're suggesting that we get 3 more and have them North and South County. The tax roll had the highest increase here. Tax roll went up 7.4%, which generated 1.8 in additional revenue. This is the only area we have a tax increase, an ad valorem tax increase, and it's 13.9%. Salary increases account for $665,752. Health insurance increases are $81,720. And there's a replacement capital equipment, which is substantial, which is $1,090,912.
What are we replacing?
I think we're replacing a fire trucks and ambulances.
One of each?
I think we got 2 ambulances.
2 ambulances
and a brush. We've got a fire truck, an ambulance. We're also doing a brush truck, which we hadn't included in that little analysis that we did a couple years ago to implement. We did our frontline stuff, which was engines and ambulances primarily, but we've got some brush trucks that are from 1985, so we really need to move forward on doing one. So we added one of those. We also have an additional ambulance over in sales tax that's in addition to the $1 million here.
Great. Commissioner Zort?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions that maybe if Brian or John or one or the other might want to come up. They are budgetary in nature, but I think they'll need to chime in on it at some point. First thing I want to say is I'm in favor of the original consolidation that we did. If you look at what we projected, what we would save and what we have saved, we've saved even more than what we projected we thought we would save. So that part is very good. Couple of questions on in looking with the budget that we have and what we're adding. If I was to grade our system in terms of are we where we need to be, are we close to where we should be, or kind of just looking at our system, are we an A, B, C, D, E with the funding requests that we have in here today? I think and part of this comes from the new station at 4th Street was probably proposed 15 years ago, and we're just getting to it. So that, to me, in my mind, is a catch-up. And I know we had a lot of good reasons why we didn't do it sooner, so I understand that. So if we're in a catch-up mode, kind of where do we think we stand if we were graded in such a fashion?
Well, for the record, my name is John King, Emergency Services Director, and let's try to answer the first question. Actually, Station 13 that's being built at 4th Street and 43rd Avenue was actually supposed to be built in 2004. And the hurricanes came and we had other priorities, and so it pushed back. And in fact, Station 14, I haven't prepared this, but I would want to think around 2007 was or 2008 was in the CIE originally to build Station 14. We haven't started those for all the reasons that you know.
Right.
When it comes to grading the system, I would tell you that all my employees are A+. I think every one of them are great. I think they try really hard. As far as the system, I think we're a growing system. I think we have employees who are retiring out that are not dual certified, being replaced by dual certified folks. But I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that what's the grading of our system unless I know what the benchmarks are. Right. But I tell you, I have the best employees. I'm very proud of them.
Okay. With the proposed budget as it goes forward, what would be potentially changing that we may not see in the budget numbers, but maybe whether it's reclassifying, repositioning, or moving folks around to a different cycle or something, and these go back to the meetings we've had at your office of somebody that may be a 24-hour person may be going to I call it 9 to 5. It may not be 9, but it's a daytime type person.
And I just, John, I mean,
I was just going to say, I'm reluctant to answer some of these questions because when we talk about daily operations, I think that that's probably something I should have a conversation with the county administrator and protect the commission from any suggestion of an unfair labor practice with direct bargaining.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I call them pegs instead of staff or something other, if I rephrase the question, does that open the latitude, or am I?
The only concern I've got is when you start talking about hours of operation and hours of service.
Well, let me rephrase the question. After this budget goes through, got to figure out how I can walk through the needle of this eye and get the question answered without.
Well, maybe you should wait till after the budget meeting today and then ask John by himself.
Well, we change as our needs change. We have to have the flexibility to move and change as our needs change throughout the year. The budget is just puts the dollars in place. It's a fluid document so that we can meet the needs that we see in the next year. And as we go through the year, we evaluate, what we need to change as far as manning in the different areas and move around. So it occurs constantly.
And I'm trying not to get into the operational side, but operation has a cost, and cost affects the budget. So I'm trying to figure out how to weave these in there together. So let's move forward. So we have 3 new battalion chief positions, not people, not operational positions.
That's in the request, yes, sir.
Right. And I see in the backup material we have, it goes through and it says 1 battalion chief for North County, 1 battalion chief for South County. Currently, the district only has 1 BC per shift. Most agencies our size have 2 or more per shift. And if you actually looked at those same, most agencies around us, they also have staffing for medic supervisors on all shifts. Some, I'd say Martin County has 4. We're almost the same population. I think that's a little much. I see that we may be changing from that definition of that person, and they're 24 on, 48 off with their own vehicle, do station training, Q&A, and all the stuff we talked a little bit about yesterday. That there's a value to have the North and the South County BC shift, and again, not trying to go into operations, but these guys will be wearing, if you split the hat down the middle, they're going to be supervising fire and supervising medical care delivery in the field because they would be dual certified. Is that?
My supervisors supervise fire rescue operations, and the position description for the battalion chiefs that we currently have would be the same position description and requirements that would be required for the 3 additional battalion chiefs.
Okay, so when you read the job description that the county has, and I think it's the current version, for what I'm referring to would be general description of class, EMS, shift field supervisor. All those duties, as we go forward, would become the duty of that battalion chief person. There wouldn't necessarily be, as the positions that have been held open as attrition, retirement, transfer, or whatever, all these duties that are listed on here in the county's material, that then would become a secondary role of the 2 battalion chiefs that would be on duty.
Again, my operations battalion chiefs, their duties are more daily handling emergency responses, multi-units to an emergency scene, and their duties are less training, more operational.
Okay, so if they're more training, less operational.
No, the operations battalion chiefs are more operational, less training.
Less training. Okay, and then.
And the positions. If we create new positions, I'm not suggesting we do that.
Right.
If we do, those positions have to be discussed by PERC as to whether those are covered by a collective bargaining agreement or they're part of the management team.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I mean, obviously, we're not going to talk about here today about the number of hours or shifting stuff. We're not going to talk about changing job descriptions or how they're posted or how they're set forth in our IAFF contract.
Right.
So I just want to remind the board that we should be cautious in those areas.
And equally important to this discussion, a management position is both advertised internally and externally. So we try to reach out and get the best applicant for a management position.
Right, okay. So with and I don't know which is the missing shift that doesn't have a EMS field supervisor person. Is it C shift or A shift? A shift is the one that doesn't have one.
And we weren't supposed to have EMS field supervisors. In the report that we had done when we did consolidation, those positions are eliminated, suggested to be eliminated even by the consultant. We did not eliminate them. We kept those positions, and those employees are still there here.
Correct. That's because we did basically the whole harmless with those employees whenever we did the.
Right. Yes, and those probably will go away because we have a dual certified as people retire.
Right. Right. Okay. So yes, they would all be dual certified. But I see without the support complement that if the battalion chiefs that would be on duty, the two that would be on duty, if they're not going to perform these roles, when those two people leave in the shift that's open that doesn't have one of these people, who's going to perform these on-duty 24-on type expectations of support to the medics on the engines let's just say they're all medics. So who's going to support those on a 24-hour shift? What's the support mechanism or position for that?
My operations battalion chiefs are dual certified. I have FTOs, field training officers, assigned to each shift, and that's the process we use now. And just, I know we're going to talk about this today, but we talked about people who are hired that are fire medics. And in the olden days, they came in and got a lot of OJT. We felt that wasn't sufficient. So over time, we created a position task book for new employees, and there are several hundred things that a new employee during their first year of employment have to show they meet the standards that we expect of them. And we do a 3-month, a 6-month, a 9-month, and a 12-month review of all new employees to make sure that they're on pace with where we want them to be and they're demonstrating the skills that we need. And their station officer helps them go through this book, and their field training officer helps them go through this book. And I think that you're helping make the case that going forward, I need more people in training.
Well, and I see it's a matter of where do we put them. From a comment from yesterday that every month Dr. Nicosia comes up, meets with, I guess, one of those folks that you mentioned, your training folks, and they Q&A calls. Every month, how many, in our contract with Dr. Nicosia, that's part of his to come up once a month and go through, and you said you kind of randomly pick incidents out of that. How many a month do we do? And it's probably depending on what you Q&A, you may do X number one month and a different number next month, depending on the complexity of what you're reviewing.
Brian handles more of Dr. Nicosia issues than myself.
Brian Burkeen, Assistant Chief. In reference to the medical director, Dr. Nicosia has a contract with the county. He's an independent contractor with us. He's not an employee of the county in any shape, fashion, or form. We do QA quite a large number of calls every day. Who it's actually done by may not be specific, but myself, Battalion Chief Richter, the FTOs for the EMS side, the EMS field supervisors, the battalion chiefs, they all have the ability to go in QA reports, give or take whatever they want to look at for the day. I can tell you that I personally probably look at about 250 a month.
Right.
And out of those 250 a month that I personally look at, I pick those ones that are problematic, have some trending to them, or the exceptionally well-done calls, and we pull those out for the QA with Dr. Nicosia every month.
Right, okay, so we're using your number of 250, and using 27,000 calls for service, we're at about 10%.
Correct.
And I don't know if 10 is good or bad. That I don't know.
Excuse me,
yes, sir.
I don't know if I understood it correctly. How many calls per month?
Well, it's 2,250 per month. So at 250, you'd be at about 10%. Actually, probably 11.
But if I heard him right, Brian's just one of a number of people.
Just one.
Okay, so to put.
And when you,
I mean, is the total calls a month 37,000 or just the ones that are done while Brian's on duty? Because the 10% is meaningless unless there's a match to it, matching the personnel to the calls per month. If multiple people do Q&As, then the number of Q&As should be up, and that should be the divisor.
True.
For the other ones. I mean, so to get the actual percent.
So when you do Q&A, is it you do it, you look at it, and if you see a problem, you write it up, or do you actually go out and meet with the crew, the unit that went out, and you say, hey, look, here's what you did beginning to end? I mean, that would be very I don't know. I guess there's one level of Q&A, and then there's another level of Q&A, and maybe getting into the difference of, if you're doing 250, you wouldn't have time to do your rest of the 3 hats that you wear.
4 hats, 5 hats. The 250 calls that I review roughly, I take that as a bird's eye view of how the system's operating as it relates to EMS-related calls. All right, and I take that if I have trending of certain types of calls that I see we're making some, we could have some improvements in, those are the ones that go to the QA meeting monthly with Dr. Nicosia. And then we discuss those as a group with the medical director, and we take the medical director's recommendations on how we move forward with that. If there's a recommendation that we need to go meet with specific paramedics or crew members about a specific call, that is either done by the EMS field supervisor or by the FTO assigned to that shift. And then they have a one-on-one discussion or training session with them in order to correct the action if it needed to be corrected.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to shift from that for a minute and go on to the rolling stock plan that we have proposed, the 1.57 million number. And again, we're still playing the catch-up curve. Even with those significant dollars on rolling stock, how long will it take us to catch up, or will we never catch up? Question. And then a second kind of part to that, we have been using what I call the Type 1 medium duty purchase, the new Ford units that we have. And I don't, in talking again the last couple of months with a number of other districts, they have been shying away from that for a number of reasons, cost being one. You're way in excess of $225,000 per unit, and going back to another type that could be anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 less. That the bang for the buck on the medium Type 1 is not been as good as expected. And
let me comment on the rolling stock. I take full responsibility on rolling stock and getting behind. When the budget became very, very tight, I had conversations with the county administrator and the budget director, and it was my decision that it was more important to keep all the employees and not do layoffs and drive older vehicles. I take full responsibility for that.
That was kind of the direction of the board, too.
Yeah, and let me say something about that. John does a great job with emergency services, and every time we go to sell our surplus equipment, it's bought by another fire department. Now that's interesting. We don't do such a good job. We don't do such a bad job as you think as far as replacing equipment. And the big ambulances, we did that for several reasons. When they're working on a patient, they need more room, and also we're trying to protect the patient and the individual working on them, because in the contained space, we had a lot more workers' comp injuries because of, they twisted their back, either our employees, and we had a lot more incidents with the patient. We think it's better to spend the money, have the bigger unit.
So just real quick, so I understand what y'all are talking about.
We're talking about the bigger ambulance as opposed, we used to have the small ambulance.
They used to be on the chassis of a Ford,
and
now they're the size
longer.
of a...
We think they last a lot longer, so...
The bigger chassis? Is that what you're talking about?
It's a bigger chassis. We used to use 3/4 tons years ago.
Right.
They went to 1 ton chassis, and now they're 1.5 ton chassis, which have heavier engines and heavier transmissions. 10 years ago, when an ambulance got to about 100,000 miles, we were thinking it's just about worn out because they're a maximum GVW on every call they go on. And the units we have now are a heavier duty chassis, and many of our vehicles have in excess of 150,000. So it does cost us more money on the front end, but we're getting 3 more years of serviceable life out of those things.
Now let me ask you a question along the same vein that you're talking about. I was under the impression that not too long ago, y'all came before us with what a life cycle of an ambulance is and a fire truck. And this board, or the commission, maybe not this commission, yeah, it was, I think it was this commission, said, okay, we want to get everything back in that lifestyle, in that life cycle. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 11 years on a fire truck.
I recommended to you 12 years.
12 years on a fire truck.
Move into reserves for about another 3 years.
Okay, and
on
then
the engines.
It was about, what was it, 5 years on an ambulance?
It was 5 to 6 years frontline on an ambulance and about 2 years in reserve.
And with that, we came forward with a budget and everything in there, and we were supposed to, if I'm not mistaken, was it 6 years be where we should be?
5 years.
5 years, and we're already 2 or 3 years into that.
Yeah, it was a 5-year catch-up plan.
Right.
15-16 will be year 3 of that plan.
Okay.
In 2013-14, we replaced 4 med units.
Right.
In the current year, we replaced 2 more. Next year, 2 more. By the time we get to the end of the 5-year period, which 15-16 is year 3, we will have replaced 12 ambulances, which is the number of stations we have. We're also buying a new one for Station 13. So at the end of that 5-year plan, we won't have an ambulance over 5 years old.
So we're there.
Same thing on the fire engines. They're 12 years old. We will not have replaced all of them in there, but we will have replaced to the extent that there will not be any frontline engines if we stay on that schedule that are over the 12 years old.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, and the other part is with Brevard, Osceola, I don't know if Martin's done, they've all did what we did it I think longer than we did, and now they're shifting back to a different type of, not a medium duty chassis because of the 75,000 unit savings. Now on the floor plan in the back, and going in the new Fords that we have, surprisingly, as big as the truck is, the floor plan footprint doesn't seem to be that much bigger than your traditional. I'm sure it is bigger, but it doesn't seem bigger. And after spending 15 years in the back of one of those, it seems to be similar in size as the one's footprint. I know the compartment stuff are different. But.
In all due respect, I don't think Brevard County ever went to a medium-size ambulance. I think they always stayed with the smaller pickup style with a box mounted on the back. The box compartment, the patient compartment, is usually always a standard size. But when you get to a larger chassis, you can get a little more length out of it and more height out of it. Okay. And that's what we were after, more length, more height. The width doesn't change. The width of your vehicles always stays the same.
By law.
By law. Right. So, and abiding by national standards, the KKK standards for ambulance constructions and operations, you can only meet certain requirements. The larger chassis give us the ability to carry more equipment. In the olden days, when we were pre-consolidation, we weren't carrying air packs and things of that nature, and we were close on our GVWs, our gross vehicle weights, which was part of the decision for us to move forward and go to a larger truck. Equipment gets bigger, it gets heavier, and we get more of it. So in an effort to be safe for our employees, we moved to a larger chassis.
Okay. And stand correct on the Brevard County, I think it's Port Canaveral or City of West Melbourne. It may not be Brevard County. It was a service in Brevard. Now kind of winding our minds back to the fire station planning meeting where we talked about the high demand of the hospital core district being coming close to 9% of the calls for service, and the problem is that I shouldn't say problem, the situation that creates where the closest unit has to respond to that corridor. So if it's station 7 or 11 or whoever is leaving, they stay out of their zone a lot longer. One option was that you had came up with that at first I disagreed with and then agreed with was putting a med unit in station 5, designating it as that being their primary response area first, that would provide significant relief and cross-covering for the other stations throughout the county. To do that, obviously, that would be a new box, not an ambulance box, not a replacement one that's in our capital cycle, and obviously would require 7 people to man that extra piece of equipment. You already have a station, you already have the sleeping rooms, you already have all the other components, so you're looking at a smaller bite at the apple versus an entire apple like a whole new station. But that seems like it would provide relief to everybody throughout the system by doing that. And I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that. Is that it seems like it would in our discussions.
Just that your additional cost is an additional service location for ambulance. That's, the 7 personnel, the ambulance itself, and the equipment that go on that ambulance. So there is some additional cost.
Right, that's, the equipment, correct.
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to say anything, but I don't see almost any of this that's in the discussion for the last 20 minutes or so in the backup. And it seems that this is more material that, if we're going to pursue it, ought to be part of a workshop. Because again, I hate long conversations about things where I have no backup, so I've got no preparation for it, so I'm just basically sitting in the background listening to it. It doesn't seem to deal directly with the budget itself, which was what I thought was the purpose of this workshop.
Well, it is. If we...
Well, hold on, because again, without backup on what's being discussed, it's hard, to make real contributions to it or even really follow some of the germane aspects of it. So,
I think that you've got to keep in mind, we can't tell where an incident's going to occur in this county in any given day. So they've got to be always ready to move operations. If you may have 5 accidents in one area all of a sudden. So Brian and the battalion chiefs, they have to make decisions, and how we handle them moves, and it's a management thing. It moves every day. So
well, the one most predictable, consistently, annually predictable for the last probably decade is Sector 38, and also with this call peak cycle is probably, you can't predict everything, but if you were in a predicting or betting world, you could come out a winner projecting what that would be, because the same number of beds, the same number of facilities, it's a very constant demand on the system. And
so just kind of pulling what you're saying back to the budget then, what is it, with you asking the question about the ambulances and that kind of stuff, what is it?
Well, one I was looking at, if we changed to a different type of equipment, would that provide future savings to pay for an additional ambulance to fulfill a Station 5 placement? Then you're paying for that capital by changing some of the capital you have in your pipeline. So that option doesn't seem to be viable. Okay. So then secondly, to provide relief to the overall system, that piece of equipment and that staff additionally placed. And part of the reason it was, when I sit down and talk with these guys out at their office, I say, how do we make it better? But they know they have to sell it to the administrator. And there's some, if somebody's told no enough on some things, you tend not to bring up where would I like to be. You bring up, how do I function and get through today? We're playing, how do we get through today, not how do we make the system maybe better over time. And
I think we have an excellent system, and I listen to my professional staff in emergency service on how they handle things daily. I usually go with their recommendation because they're experts in that area. I think they do an exceptional job. That's how I am. I don't dictate, especially in this area. I listen to them. What kind of ambulance do they want to purchase? What's best for their staff, and deliver the service to the patient.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Next, the significant lack of coverage area in Vero Lake Estates, that we have somewhat of an opportunity with the Station 1 remodeling going on. That'll be finished in April.
Yeah. In fact, can I interject on this? I'm just
sure, maybe without even seeing my notes.
But basically, what I'd like to do, and I'm kind of in a situation like where Joe is. After a while, I'm not going to be here. But there are some things that I'd like to see, and one of those is obviously we want to keep moving forward with the one on 4th Street, and then somewhere, keep the funding mechanisms in place, because we're going to have the next one somewhere around the 26th or whatever, pick your area. But I think that as we finish up Station number 1, we're going to have the opportunity for a unit that we're going to own. I'd like for us to start looking 3 years down the road now on taking that unit, putting it near the North County Aquatic Center, and if nothing else, at least just put if not a ambulance, at least an ambulance, or I want ALS. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's in a fire truck or a box. I think that would go a long ways in helping some of your concerns, going back to about 38, and I'm not even sure where 38 is, but I know that the more ALS we have in the system, the less demand, the bigger the denominator is per call. And so that's kind of where I'd like for us to start looking 3 years down the road in this, and as we set the millage rate. I know this isn't going to be, it's not going to be cheap, but this has been put off for so long because it was the right thing to do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's where I'd like to be with it.
Well, you read kind of my first part of my notes. Second part, with the modular unit we have at Station 1 that'll be freed up in about April of next year, could be relocated from there to the North County Aquatic Center area, and then staff it with either or, whichever I could get 3 votes for, essentially. What I'd like to staff it with would be, don't know if I can sell everything, but.
Is that this year?
No.
Well, in the future, I think we can, we all agree that we need the Vero Lake Estate. No one here, I mean, John would tell you, we've been trying to get there for years, and, you know, we can move that up and tell you what we think it's going to cost in the near future, and off we go.
I'm looking at a not a 3-year window, a sooner window, because the people, when you talk to those, they said, we've been talking about a station for longer than 4th Street and 43rd, probably. With having the temporary facility, we don't have capital costs that we have to relocate for about $15,000 the unit over. Then the question is, how and what do you staff it with in that area? So maybe a mid-year budget review to look at, bringing back a plan of how to, because once Station 1's finished, where are we going to park those? Out at Road and Bridge in the parking lot and just let them sit there indefinitely, or put them back for sale and I
can't explain this, but why rely on the daily professional staff emergency management? You know, when incidents are occurring, they move the ambulance up. When one's got a lot more calls, they do that. It changes daily for them, and they know what they're doing.
Well, these conversations came from meeting with them of how do we make ourselves better? How do we provide relief on insurance premiums, better response for EMS delivery, whether it's an ALS engine or the other, not getting to that part. If I had them bring forward everything that we talked about in the meetings, you might have had to call the ambulance for the budget impact.
If that's the case, that you're asking for so much, then the more appropriate thing is to, I think, is to bring it up under your matters, add an agenda.
Well, if you don't bring it up, if you don't.
Let me just finish.
Okay.
Add an agenda item, and then ask the board to give the staff certain direction.
Right.
But it seems like you've been spending an awful lot of time with the emergency services department, where I'm guessing they're using up an awful lot of staff time without board direction. And it's my understanding that you're not running the emergency services district, that it's run by John King under the direction of Joe Baird following the policy of this board.
Right.
So, again, this, for me, it's taking us further and further off the task of today, which is the budget for 2015-2016. I think a lot of what you're talking about would be worthy of conversation, but I'm really not sure that this is the appropriate spot.
Well, Ed, I know that if you don't bring it up today and you mention the millage today, you cannot bring it up tomorrow or at a later
Are you
date.
asking for something in the 2015-2016
Well,
budget?
I'm trying to see, you have to figure out, based on other people's comments, is there any interest of moving something?
If you want my interest, at this point, the millage rate is proposed by the people who are supposed to run the department, is increasing the millage rate by 3.9%. I came in here willing to support that.
13.9.
13.9. I thought I said that.
You said
13.9. 13.9%. I came in here willing to support that, though that's a far reach, but I doubt, unless there's something that can be clearly demonstrated to me that with backup, with that lives are going to be in harm's way, that I would support anything more than 13.9%. I mean, I came into this budget hearing with the words of one constituent resounding in my ears. You can increase the taxes all you want, but I can't increase what I charge my customers anything more. And that, to me, is something is continually like on replay in my mind. So, I mean, that's just one commissioner's, but 13.9% is as high as I can imagine increasing the millage rate for the emergency services district today.
All right, let me ask one last question of either of you that'll decide if I move a motion forward on something or not. On a I don't know if I should say annual basis, or on what frequency, how often do we have every ambulance unit committed? I know I stumble across it when I listen, when I drive, but that's not any way to say that's any particular pattern. But since you look at it more closely, it's not once a year, it's not twice a year, it's more frequent than that.
Oh, absolutely. Demands for services increase every year of about 3%. That's a given, and we understand that. And by adding more service locations, we kind of alleviate that as we move forward. We can probably tell you that for a short period of time, I'd probably tell you 4 or 5 times a week, we do a total depletion of all the ambulances, where they're all out on calls at any given time. Now, with that given, it may only be for 2 or 3 minutes, it may be for 20 or 30 minutes, depending on how the call volume goes in. But in which the business model that we have in place here with consolidation is that we have ALS engines and we have those ALS ambulances as well. And the system is working that if the ambulance is out and it's busy, the ALS engine is responding to those calls, providing that stabilized care until that next available ambulance gets on scene. We rarely wait a period of more than a couple of minutes for an ambulance to be en route from a hospital to be en route to a call. And that's probably a very, very true and accurate statement.
And so, if I could, just along those same lines, then when we open up the new station, which is in this year's budget, it should
decrease those amount of occurrences happening.
So all we need to do is figure out what's the triggering point, how many, after that station goes into service, how often does that happen, and at what point does it become our uncomfort level of, and the part 2 of what you had mentioned, let's just use Station 7, for example, if they both were dispatched to a call within Station 7's district, and then you do get a call, an additional call in Station 7, there's no ALS engine to send first, you have to send 3 or somebody else, whoever's closer.
Correct. The next available apparatus or station will respond to that call based upon what it is. But at the same time, if it's a non-life-threatening call and it's just like flu-like symptoms, that's just going to be a normal driving pattern, ambulance responding to the call. It's not a lights and sirens response.
Right, okay. So for the next year going forward, I'll take your comments, Commissioner Solari, on a lot of what I've met with them was data gathering, learning, going to other districts, learning, and then trying to disseminate it of how do we look at it, and to make ourselves better and providing better service to the public. It does have a cost. I mean, that's for sure. And everything that they do, whether it's a stretcher for $10,000 or an engine for $500,000, nothing in that business is inexpensive. And
I just don't want the public to get the wrong impression. We give excellent service.
Absolutely.
We give excellent service. It's an area we take very seriously as the Emergency Services District and the care. And I think our individuals out there are giving excellent service. I will say it's emergency service. I get the least complaints about if anywhere out of that area, and that's health care, which is important.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'd like to add something else. I mean, from numbers I've seen, and I'm not going to remember them exactly, but in terms of the state, we're up in I think it's in 2013, if I remember correctly, in state spending for emergency services, we're about either 18th or 18th%, which put us up at least in the top quarter. And since then, we'll have at least this raise here, which I think will push us higher. I don't think that too many counties are going to be increasing the millage rate by 13.9%. So in no way could I say that we're shorting the emergency services revenues. I'm not saying that we're optimizing them in all ways, which again, that to me is more a workshop discussion of saying that, okay, we need to have a wide discussion about how things may be done better. But for me on the budget hearing, the idea is, are we giving adequate resources? And I think that is, the answer has to be yes. And are we basically doing at least what we're hearing today that staff is recommending? And I'd have to say that the answer is yes. So that's just for me to put it in perspective.
And to help you out as well, we're running through 12 stations right now. It's 11 ambulances and 12 fire trucks. We have some wonderful people, man. They're out there doing a great job every day. We're responding to almost 30,000 calls per year for service.
That's events.
Events. That's 911 calls for service. And we're almost 44,000 vehicles rolling out the door per year to respond to those calls. You know, if it's an auto accident, it gets an ambulance and a fire truck. You know, it may get 2 ambulances. Structure fires will get 4 vehicles responding to those calls. So that's 44,000 vehicles rolling out the door every year. You know, and that's just a shade over 100 vehicles rolling out the door every day to respond to those 911 calls. So I think we're doing a great job based upon the business model we have. We're providing some exceptional care out there.
All right. Since I can't count to, I can count to 1. I will, but during the year I will bring back some things that we can take a look at. Probably.
I was unsure what you were trying to count to 1 for.
Well, Commissioner Zork, if you'd like to ask staff to bring back a proposal to add another ambulance to take over Section 38 or whatever it is,
right.
Or at their discretion where they think an additional ambulance would be best utilized. And also to take a look at using the modular for some type of North County relief from Bureau like Estates, have them research that, they can bring it back to us, and then I would say we'd start looking at that for the 16-17 budget. But, you know, if you want to ask them to research that, I'm all in favor of asking the staff to look into that. I mean,
and I guess, and the way I'm looking at it right now is we're budgeting a new station. We're hiring 22, and so I don't know how this might solve our problems enough to where we might not need that other. And I don't know. Right. But even then, I don't want to take our eye off. We know we're going to need that other station after we get finished with 104th Street, and I know that with the calls and the locations geographically, that somewhere around the North County Aquatic Center is going to be another one. So I don't know that you can't count to 1 or 3.
Right.
But I think that right now, what Commissioner O'Brien said,
right,
and we're clearly right now we're addressing that backlog, if you will, of those 4 times a week whenever we're tapped out with ambulances by building the station as quick as we can and budgeting this year for its operations.
And they looked at that 38 and staff professionally didn't think it was needed. Also, when we're spending time going through all this stuff, we're taking time away from operations. So, you know, we can look at things over and over, but we've got daily operations that need to be done.
Joe, let me ask you, when's the next 5-year plan for the emergency services going to come before the board? The 5-year plan.
Being a CIE?
Yes.
Well, we do the 5-year CIP each fall.
Okay, so I think that this ought to be part of the 5-year plan, and it's perfectly fine for Commissioner Zork to, at his matters, at one of the next meetings, to outline what he'd like to be considered as part of the 5-year plan. Yeah. And then in that whole plan, we can decide, because again, taking it out of context, if I remember correctly, we're scheduled for another big millage rate, perhaps, at the emergency services in the 2017-2018 fiscal year. Is that, am I remembering correctly?
Station 14, I believe.
Okay, so I mean, so these things roll forward, so, I mean, I'm happy to listen to what Commissioner Zork has to say about this, but I'd like to see it in the context of the 5-year plan, so I have some idea of what the impact on the taxpayers is going to be at that time.
And that would be a great time opportunity to bring that forward. All right.
Anything else?
I'm good. We'll work on it for the upcoming fall period. Thank you.
Anybody from the public wish to address this? Anybody at all?
The only one.
Well, it's only a 50-50 shot, Mr. Chairman.
It's Jackie or John.
And it looks like the most qualified guy is about ready to speak.
John, welcome.
There's 2 podiums.
I think everything's already been said, but John O'Connor, I want to thank Emergency Services Director John King for accommodating my request to be here today to address you briefly. Even though I have a uniform on, I'm representing Local 2201, so I just wanted to clarify that for the board. I think we're moving in a great step in the right direction for obviously adding Station 13 and the engine and the 2 ambulances and the brush truck. That to me is obviously great as far as capital improvements are concerned, and the addition of the battalion chiefs. That is a great step in the right direction for us as well as far as safety is concerned, because when we've got a fire scene that's breaking loose and there's a huge car accident on 95 or there's another brush fire going on, we need that guy to make sure that we're safe on those calls. So on behalf of the local, I really appreciate putting it in the budget, and hope that you guys will approve that, and I think it's a good step for sure. That being said, you guys are adding more rolling stock, which is wonderful, but we've got the 2 mechanics in fleet that are they're working to death. I mean, those guys, we just keep on adding more and more jobs, and I don't know if the board is clear as to what their job duties are. They have, not only do they have to do the small engine repair and then the staff and fleet vehicles, but they're also working on the ambulances and the engines and the air packs and everything else, and we just keep on adding more and more work to these guys. I don't know if there's any room for this year's budget, but maybe in next year, if we can maybe give those guys some help, maybe get them another mechanic in there or somebody at least that can help with the operations of how that department works, I think that would be
John,
great.
are the mechanics in there, and forgive my ignorance, is that a 3% FRS position also?
Not that I'm aware.
No, okay.
They're Teamsters.
So
They're not in special risk. But let me say that's the only thing that John had requested. John King had requested additional mechanic. We looked at it in priority, and that's the only thing we changed in John's request. We didn't add that mechanic. We looked at it as, as far as public safety, that the 17 additional employees and the 3 battalion chiefs as a higher priority, and just that's the only thing that I changed in the whole budget was I took that position out, and I just wanted to disclose that. How much is that position, Jason? But John did request that because there's as the vehicles go down, they need them in the day to keep them moving. And
It's about $47,000 total salaries and benefits. One of the thoughts was as we get the fleet newer, there should be fewer repairs. You do have some preventive maintenance that continues on.
Well, then let me ask you a question then.
If you guys wanted to put that back in, we would put it back in and try and absorb it within the 13.9%.
Well, could we do this? Can we put it in like half year?
Well, actually, my question, what would affect it for me is when do we plan on having delivery of the $1 million+ worth of rolling stock that we've already ordered? Because that's going to help substantially, you would think, by taking
stuff on order right now that hasn't come in, and John's going to have to answer that.
Because I would want it now if it's going to be towards the end of the fiscal year.
Manufacturers of fire trucks and ambulances are specialty equipment, and they don't have a yard like a Ford dealership. It's all you place your order, and it's about a 9-month delivery on all those specialty vehicles.
Is it from today?
From the day they get a PO.
Have we? So we haven't. I'm assuming with us budgeting this, therefore we don't haven't started the PO yet, and therefore we're looking.
Sometimes we do issue the PO early. Like we could do that. We could, even though it's in next year, we know we're not going to expend the funds till next year, and we could issue the purchase order. The only risk there would be if the Board of County Commissioners said, killed the vehicle, which I don't see that happening at all here.
No.
In September. And I don't see that happening here. So that's the only risk we have. We can do that.
I'm good with putting the POs in now.
Yeah, I definitely want to put the POs in now. Let's go ahead and start that.
And historically, the county administrator and budget director have done that for us. At this time, when we get past the budget workshop and the commission seems favorable, they have routinely told me to go ahead and get a PO issued to the company knowing the delivery time.
Yeah.
We have a practice of that.
Okay. We really haven't addressed whether or not you want to add the position for the fire, for the
Well, Chief, historically when you've had to do service on a vehicle, you have to strip down the vehicle, transfer all the equipment, and then drop it off for service, correct?
That's correct.
So
Talking about routine maintenance.
Excuse me?
Talking about just routine maintenance on the vehicles?
Routine maintenance.
Yes.
So now we're tying up 2-4 hours plus whatever work. I'm sure it takes some time to get all that equipment off.
Well, I was sincere when I submitted the budget requesting for a mechanic, and I understood the position that the county administrator was in, is that it was going to be a tax increase, and we had to make some hard decisions, and he made the decision he believed that was correct. But he was very kind about it, but I did push very hard for a mechanic.
And will it expedite service any while we're waiting for these new deliveries? And in addition, do these mechanics, are they working on the Scott packs and everything else? And
we have a very short list of reserve vehicles, and our reserve vehicles are dated. And unlike some other, like your personal vehicle, often you can wait till next week. And we run a 365-day-a-year business, and so our mechanics are often out at night, and weekends, and when one of them uses their vacation, I'm down to one mechanic, or somebody's off on a sick leave or whatever. So I'm down to one. At times I'm on one mechanic, and those guys, they work so hard to keep this service up. I'm very, very proud of those guys. But
When it comes to day-to-day operations, you're the man that's, you have both hands on the equipment. So, Chief, if you felt it warranted to request, and we're hearing from others that there is a basic need, I could support that, to go forward and do that now.
I believe I can too.
That's two.
And also, since I drive by that place 2 or 3 times a day, usually with kids with school, they're busy, and just the checking after a service on a vehicle, doing the test drive you're taking, and if you have 2 guys and you factor in vacation, sick, education time, you really have about 1.7 guys there now. You don't even have 2. They're full-time, but the functional application of their time, they have sick days, they have vacation time. They're not even there in terms of the 2,080-hour work cycle. They're just not there. So that's definitely an area that needs support.
I just want to point out we have 5 mechanics for the rest of the county's vehicles combined. And we do have 10-8 there. They're able to send some repairs out to 10-8 if they can't handle them in-house, so they don't just sit and wait.
Yeah, but I view that, first of all, I mean,
If the commission wants it, we'll absorb it and try not to.
Yeah, and it is different on the stock that, I mean, if a grader goes down, okay.
Yeah, I would just implore the commission that these guys are outmanned and outgunned, and they've been that way for some time, and they need some help.
You know, I did check, Mr. Chairman, and every time they had a grader scheduled to do your road, it broke down. So.
Story of my life. Yeah. Would you believe the fish bite the day before I get there and the day after I leave?
No.
Joe, can
do we count to 3 on that?
Changing the millage rate?
Yeah, we won't change the millage rate. It'll give Jason heartburn, but we'll do it.
He needs a little heartburn.
He does.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll absorb it. Pardon?
46,353.
It's 46,353 with benefits. So if the commission so wishes, it's, you know, you look at the size of the budget, we'll try and absorb it with some risk. And we had a better than expected. This had the highest tax outgoing increase. It was higher than expected. This was what, 7.38.
Okay. All right. Anything else, gentlemen? Commissioner Zork?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. John, I'm sorry.
I just had 2 other things, and I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Now, you know the answer's no to that.
Of course.
Whatever's up.
I got one. And
that one costs money. Now, this one.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
There had been some discussion previously about, and I don't know if this is the correct form, because I don't know, it does pertain to the Emergency Services District and also safety, but it's not related per se. We've talked about the traffic light in front of Station 4 as far as safety concerns, because the Oslo Road actually kind of curves to the right, and that it's a blind drive, so when you have an emergency vehicle trying to come out, sometimes there's a delay of 30 seconds to a minute waiting for the cars to stop because they can't see you. I don't know, I think Commissioner O'Brien actually came out and looked at that particular area, so I don't know if that falls under a different part of the budget or if that is related to Emergency Services
That would fall under.
We've had Chris Mora, Public Works Director, and I've had several discussions on this, and we had a conversation, and it was not something that would be paid for by the roads, anything to do with roads. It would be specific to us. The cost was around $400,000 to $400,000 to $450,000 to do the installation plus annual maintenance on it. And he did some traffic studies for us, and he suggested
for one?
For one location.
There's got to be.
And the other thing is so close to the other intersection.
He said it didn't warrant it at this time. Maybe over time, as Oslo Road gets more traffic. It's a divided highway. I use it. I live off that road. But he said that at this time it wasn't warranted.
What about maybe an alternative of, instead of a functioning stoplight, at least to step into it, a caution emergency vehicle approaching or exiting building, something
that's what I was
less intensive, because as the new rule goes into effect,
light.
Right.
Something, maybe come back with a.
I apologize. I digress. I should have specified an emergency flashing light just for the emergency traffic to come out, not an actual traffic light.
In this case, every second it takes you longer to get en route to the call is going to start costing us on our ISO audits. So those seconds really.
Yeah, and I'm assuming there's a way whenever we have a call of making it flash at that time, or would it flash all the time?
As soon as the tones go off, I mean, I actually think the emergency services director is probably more educated on the subject than I am. I just think that we need a light out there, but.
I did have a conversation with with the Public Works Director about that, and if I remember the number, it was about, last time we talked about it was like $90,000 to get to go through the process to put some type of light that would be activated by push button.
We can look into this and see what come back.
All right.
I do appreciate that. And then lastly, I would, I know it's kind of premature because we just had a discussion about the health insurance benefits for the county employees, and I would encourage the commission to work with staff to try to come up with some alternative measures to try to cut costs for the taxpayer, but also producing or providing health resources for the employee, you know, specifically the
on that.
clinics and so forth and so on.
We are. Thank you. That's countywide.
Yeah, that we're going to be bringing that all year long. We'll make sure we furnish you the information, but we're going to bring it 3 or 4 times a year with different solutions and alternatives, and look at our trending. And we'll be bringing. We're going to have a consultant. We'll start bringing that all along. But we want everyone to be aware, our employees and everyone, so that they can all buy in, because it's a big thing right now.
I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one item that does not have a millage rate impact.
Okay.
As we've gone through hey, John, if you can hang on for 1 second. As we've gone through kind of a stressful year last year, I think we need to just continue the building and improving the relationship with the guys at the department, and look to let them know that we do care about them. We're trying to do the best for them. And I make that commitment to continue doing that, continue visiting stations, continuing meeting with guys that are around. So I don't just bother the guys at EOC. I go see other folks too, because it's important to hear that people have the opportunity to know that you care, and the only way they know is if you go out there and you go see them. So.
Well, we'd love to see you, and I encourage any of the commissioners to come and have dinner with us. Just give us forewarning so we can buy extra. But I do appreciate that, and I look forward to working with staff and the commission and trying to keep our relationships even better.
Appreciate it, John.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, then that concludes. We're going to reconvene at 1:30.
1:30, yes, sir.
We'll be back, so give us an hour to stretch, and we'll close this workshop, and we'll come back at 1:30.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let's get this on the road. Yes, please. I'm ready, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, City Electric. Now, you want to mess with me again, Commissioner Solari?
Good thing we're not on FPL there.
Okay, let's see if any of the Constitutionalists want to say anything.
Yeah, okay, Leslie, it's your turn.
There you go. Hurry up before it goes off.
I tell you what, let's do. Let's go ahead, Leslie. Let's do the time certain, and then we'll do the constitutionals. That way, you give you the full the slot like we did. The public hearing, since that is advertised as a time certain for the solid waste disposal district, our budget hearing will reconvene at this time. And so I will turn this over to Mr. Barron.
Yes, this is the solid waste disposal district, otherwise known as SWID. We're proposing a budget of $13,137,435. That is a $1,452,207 increase. The residential ERU is going to go from $79.94 to $102.61, which is a $22.67 increase. The commercial waste generation unit is going to go from $34.05 to $35.55, $1.50 increase. Readiness to use is going to go from $19.37 to $19.96, a 59-cent increase. These increases are all due to the they're all due to the requirement of going single stream and trying to make our recycling needs, which are basically mandates by the state. That's what's really causing this budget to increase.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, question.
Yes, sir.
Under landfill, the increase, when do we start factoring in the bonus life of the cell for opening closing costs based on the new recycle program going forward?
What we do is there's a requirement that we actually book that cost every year based on your capacity in the landfill.
Right.
And we have to have a survey done every year.
Okay, so next year after the recycling.
Yes, but we build in those numbers on an estimated basis. We also cash fund them. We don't just book the liability. We also set aside the cash.
Okay, so when we look next year, we'll have not quite a full year of recycling operations, and we'll see a tonnage difference potentially of what didn't go in the landfill that did go to
They
recycling.
actually look at the I think it's cubic yards.
feet. Okay.
They go into cubic yards on how much is left based on, the life of the landfill, the size. Full total cubic yards you could put in that cell, and then they take what you've used, and that's how they come up with your liability.
But Commissioner Zork's onto a good point. That expense that's in this budget, right, for a portion of it, that ought, as we get going, if we're successful, that ought to not just decline annually. It ought to be able to perhaps get down to zero for some years.
It should definitely go down, and that's one of the things, the savings of the airspace, that's what we will realize.
Yeah, but if we get the increasing it to 70, if it hits 75%, the increase in the landfill would go about 50 years. And with any interest earnings on the money that's already in reserve, we could get down to zero, at least theoretically. It's for some years. Anyway, we don't need to...
Potentially, and it does fluctuate each year based on the survey.
Well, I understand, but that survey, if we're successful, because we've based it on the useful life of, say, 50 years, and paid for, say, 20 years of it so far, and if it goes to 100 years, then that stretches out significantly differently.
But you do pay for the amount that's used that year.
Right.
You do
It's just
have
that would be
a
shrinking amount as we recycle
Yeah, but
more.
the years we've already paid, it would have turned out, on the average, we would have paid more.
More than
But-
what we need.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it will go down.
I'm an optimist.
I'm good.
Any other questions or comments? That takes care of the recycling and the sanitary landfill from y'all's side, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now we need to open the public hearing, correct? Since we're sitting here as I'll adjourn the workshop, and I'll reopen the public hearing for the solid waste disposal district, of which we are the board for that. Would anybody like to address the solid waste disposal district's changes? Seeing none, let the record show that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided to all. I'll now close the solid waste disposal district public hearing, and now we'll move back into the workshop. So we're back open to the workshop.
Put some nails.
Jason and Joe, would you guys prefer a vote on the WGU and the budget?
They
so
could
that-
just vote on everything because it's just a hearing. They could just vote. They accept the staff presented. I think that's good.
Okay, that's fine. I just know in our state it contemplates.
Yeah, at the September, that's when they have to do the votes and the separate in September.
Okay, so what do you need for us right now then?
Might be best for motion.
Consensus?
Somebody give me a...
Mr. Chairman?
I'm a little concerned of the crowds that I attract with my dynamic
Jason.
conversations.
Does the total budget change with the things we're adding back in, or are you just going to put that into?
We're not going to change it. What we're going to do is adjust.
Okay,
the cash
that's
flow.
all I need to know. All right, so,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, wait, hold on before we go too far. Let's just take care of the solid waste disposal district.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
we have the supervisor of elections here that would like to have...
Okay, I thought you were ready for
Approval as
a
presented.
I've got a motion to approve as presented. I will second that for the solid waste disposal district, since we've completed properly the public hearing. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion for the solid waste disposal district's rates approved unanimously. Now, if we could, let's go back to the supervisor of elections. Mr. Barrett, if you would, out of courtesy for our supervisor, would you please go through that one more time? She'd like to have a few words to speak.
The supervisor of elections is requesting for next year $1,254,743. That is a $178,253 increase.
Okay.
16.6%, huge.
But Miss Swan, welcome. You want to throw your shoe at Bob? Feel free. That sounded like a good
He told
welcome.
me he didn't want me to talk too long, but after that, I better give my little spiel. Well, good afternoon, Chairman Davis and Commissioners. I'm Leslie Swan, Supervisor of Elections. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to be here before you today. This year is going to be an extremely busy year, and especially for next year's chairman, who's going to be sitting on our 2016 canvassing board. Our staff has been working diligently to prepare for the upcoming election cycle. During a presidential election cycle, the supervisor of elections budget does peak due to the costs associated with conducting an additional election, which will be the presidential preference primary on March 15th of 2016. The cost for conducting this upcoming election is approximately $150,000. This is an added cost that comes around every 4 years. Besides the cost for conducting the presidential preference primary election, our office was recently notified that Precinct 34, which is housed at the John A. Crowley Center, they're no longer having that available as a polling place, so we have to relocate that. And the Florida statute requires us to do certain things. So it's going to cost us about $4,000 because we have over 3,000 voters at that precinct, and we have to print and mail new voter information cards to every one of those registered voters. We do a second mailing that has a postcard with directions and a map how to get to the site. We need precinct signage, and we have to advertise because you have to get the word out many times in order for people to hear it. After a thorough search of Precinct 34, we're really pleased to report that the Lakewood Village has opened up their clubhouse to use as a polling location. And this is located at 1455 90th Avenue, and it is a great facility. It's got lots of room, lots of parking, and it's handicap accessible. So I'm extremely grateful to the Board of Directors at Lakewood Village to welcome us as a new polling location. My proposed budget also includes funds to purchase a Dell server for our enhanced backup and recovery measures for our voter registration database. And our building has been experiencing frequent brownouts, which are extremely detrimental to our computer system. I've contacted FP&L, they've come out, they've looked at the system, and they said there's adequate power going in there. We have, at the same time, another little issue that's going on. It's with our air conditioning system. Facilities management is well aware of this reoccurring problem. And 2 Sundays ago, Gary and I, at 6:30 in the morning, got a call from our alarm company saying that the server room was overheating. So God bless Gary, he went there at 6:45, and it was already 82 degrees in the morning. So he had to turn off the server until they fixed the air conditioning the next day. So hopefully this problem will be able to be resolved soon. So the server that we budgeted for backs up every hour as opposed to what we're doing now every 24 hours. And lastly, our staff has not had a cost of living increase in the past 8 years. So I'm grateful that the Board of County Commissioners and the citizens of Indian River County, I thank them for their consideration of a 3% cost of living increase for my staff, who's loyal, competent, and dedicated to serving the voters of Indian River County. And as a side note, last fiscal year, the board approved my recommendation for a new voting system in 2017. And as requested by Commissioner Zork, he asked for a funding timeline for each of those 3 years leading up to that. And I've included that in my budget request package. So our office is anxiously awaiting a new voting system in 2017. And I appreciate your support, and I look forward to an exciting election year.
Yes.
If I can, to the supervisor, thank you for being here this afternoon. You made note in your presentation that the chair of the board would be on the canvassing board for the next exciting election year. Keeping in mind that it appears that Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Zork, and Commissioner Solari are running, does that mean that Commissioner Flesher and Commissioner O'Brien are really only 2 eligible board members who would be able to serve in that role? Thank you.
What do they do since they're going to be busy on my campaign? Who does it then?
And I think the chief judge appoints someone.
I will tell you that I will abstain from any campaigning because I know that there is a duty that
has to be done. I tell you what. All right.
Not a way out, huh?
Mr. Sherk?
Yes.
Leslie, did facilities, are they looking at replacing your AC, or where are we on that, or Joe?
That's what I was going to ask you, because you can see one of the fans isn't turning, so it seems like it's on its last legs unless there's something else they can do, but it's going out on a frequent basis.
I've just written that down. I'm going to have I'll make sure that facilities management looks at it. And if it needs to be done, we'll do it on an emergency basis this year.
Okay.
And we've got to find out what's wrong with it. I wasn't aware until.
Okay, well, with the brownout, I mean, that's bad on electronics. Like, I mean, not just on your computer system, that's bad on the air conditioner systems. And so they're still happening, and you're on FP&L.
Right.
And they're saying it's fine going to your facility.
Right.
Have we had somebody look at from where, I mean, I don't know whether it's.
Yeah, we'll have everything looked at.
Okay.
And also two other things. Did FPNO offer to put in it's like a voltage box that
Yes.
they put that in, so that's a good.
And monitored it for a week or so.
Okay. Secondly, do we have anybody that's already sort of on retainer with the county that would be it's either a loose leg or something in the system that's causing these intermittent.
We didn't know if it was the air conditioning because we had a video camera blowout, and when the gentleman was repairing the video camera, all of a sudden the air conditioning clicked off and then the lights clicked. So, that's what his analysis was. I don't know. I don't fix air conditioners.
Has it been this way all along, or is it just a more recent?
Many.
So before it does more damage, get somebody, take
And they come out and fix it right away. I'm not saying that,
Right.
but I just think some
the
of the
cause
fans
of what's
aren't
making it
turning
happen.
either, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, but there's no need in fixing the AC if we have an electrical problem. We need to fix the electrical problem then
First, right.
do the AC because we'll be right back in the same situation.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. You might as well sit down and relax and wait till the rain quits. All right, that concludes our constitutional officers, and now we go into the aggregate millage.
Millage is just a benchmark, but we do have to announce it. It's in the state statute. The current year aggregate millage is 5.5477. Rollback is 5.2510. We're proposing 5.8001. That's a 0.5491 increase.
Anything else?
That's it.
Well, a couple different issues. In the past, I know the board has voted on the tentative millage rates individually for each of the four separate. I will be quiet. It looks like that's
It's
about
the
to pop
next
up on the
slide.
screen.
It's the next slide. The total proposed, we're going to incorporate the changes that you have brought up today, the ag extension position, the $3,000 for 211, and David Gunner's money for soil conservation of $1,310. We'll move it around between contingencies in the general fund so the overall budget doesn't change.
You left off the mechanic.
The awnings.
Or the mechanic also in solid, I'm sorry, we'll do that in solid waste. Emergency Services District.
And the canopies that we talked about, that'll be absorbed?
That canopy we're going to do this year immediately so that it gets taken care of.
Good. Thank you, sir.
The total proposed budget for 2015-16 year is $279,943,033. It's a decrease of $34,497,691, or 11%. The general fund, the proposed millage right now is 3.3602. It's 6.5% above rollback. And the proposed budget is $77,523,210. You could make a motion separately for the millage and then the general fund dollar amount.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to move the proposed millage of 3.36.02, a 6.5% increase above rollback, with a proposed budget of $77,523,210.
Second. Got a motion from Commissioner Solari with a second from Commissioner Flesher for the proposed budget for the general fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
The MSTU, the proposed millage is the same as last year, 1.0733. That's 5.7% above rollback. The proposed budget is $26,624,870.
Mr. Chairman, I move the proposed millage rate of 1.0733 for the municipal service taxing unit and a proposed budget of $26,624,870.
Second.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien with a second from Commissioner Solari. If there are any further discussion. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next into the
Transportation Fund, and the proposed budget's $14,310,369.
Mr. Chairman, move the Transportation Fund proposed budget of $14,310,369.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien. Is there a second?
Second.
I got a second from Commissioner Solari. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion for the Emergency Services District, a proposed millage rate of 2.2551, which is 20.6% above rollback, for a proposed budget of $32,183,194.
Second. Got a motion from Commissioner Solari with a second from Commissioner Flesher for the Emergency Services District's budget and millage rate. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
The environmental land.
Chairman, I'll move the Environmental Land Acquisition 2004 referendum proposed millage of 0.3315, and rollback does not apply, and the proposed budget is $4,537,636.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien with a second from Commissioner Flesher for the Environmental Land Acquisition 2004 referendum proposed millage and budget. Flesher, you seconded that, did? Got a motion from O'Brien with a second from Flesher. Is there any further discussion? Anybody from the public wish to address this?
Sure.
Seeing none? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Now we have to announce and pick the date for a preliminary budget hearing, and it's September 10th, 2015 at 5:01 p.m. in the Board of County Commissioner Chambers at 1801 27th Street. And the final budget hearing we're going to schedule for September 17th, 2015 at 5:01 p.m. in the Board of County Commissioner Chambers at 1801 27th Street.
Anything else, Commissioners?
Fine job.
Good job, yeah.
Yeah, very nice job.
Thank you. You may want to vote on this just in case the budget hearing.
Move the dates for the preliminary budget hearing and the final budget hearing.
And for both of them to be at 5:01.
Yep.
Dates and time.
Not a minute earlier.
No, sir. Absolutely.
Probably a minute later.
I'll second that motion. Got a motion from Commissioner Solari. I'll second it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I now declare this workshop adjourned.